Hello, everybody. How we doing on this fine Friday evening? Did y'all have good weeks? Or was it a wonderful time? I sure hope so. I sure hope y'all have been having a good week. But if not, hey, it's the weekend, so that'll be fun. Does anyone have any exciting plans? Anybody gonna have, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore. My folks are down visiting, so we're having a very, very good time so far. So good. Ooh, I would love to hear a fun fact about Jade. I would love to hear a fun fact about him as long as it has nothing to do with anything that has not been released in Book 7. But otherwise, yes, I would love that. Hello, hello. Week's been good? Good, good, good. Oh, Jade has canonically eaten eel before? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Doesn't he have like a really sus comment about potentially maybe eating his siblings at some point in time that just kind of gets glossed over? But yeah, his disliked food is conger eel, I believe. Yeah, thank you for your Jade fact. Love that. Oh, my, my, my. Well, today we are all gathered here to finish up the TWST novel. Yay! And hopefully it'll all go well, and maybe the live captions or open captions will work. I don't know. Who's to say? But I suppose we'll find out, shan't we? Shan't we? Hello, hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hope y'all are doing good. Hope y'all are doing good. Oh, you were introduced to this fandom after my read-through. Oh, fantastic. You like the novel more because of the context? Ah, yeah. In the JP fandom. Fair enough, fair enough. Aw, you fell... You've fallen in love with Malinor Draconia. I mean, I can understand why. She's a fantastic lady. A little stressed when we meet her in Lilia's dream, but, you know, waging wars will do that. Yeah. She's quite a mood. She's quite a mood. She is a fantastique. Absolutely. Well, let's get our Heartslabyul music going. Let's get our chatting. And let us get our story time background set up. Oh, good. Look at that. The captions are working. For now. Oh my, they're a little more delayed than they were last time. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, if they ever do stop, try to flag me down in chat. It's gonna be hard to pay attention since I'll also be reading a book. But I'll try to fix them like I did last time. Although they apparently are very stubborn. So we'll see. But anyways, with that, should we dive in to chapter 12? We've got, I think, 100 some odd pages left to go. We have, we're at chapter 12. We have to get to chapter 18, although chapter 18 is like a page. So, we'll see how it goes. But anyways, chapter 12. Hey, you! The first thing Yuya saw when he opened his eyes was a fluffy gray tail bobbing up and down beside him. Grim was happily asleep on his stomach. Takes a lot to wake you two up, huh? Ace said, while Deuce folded up the sheets behind him. Morning, Yuya answered, rubbing his eyes. When had they woken up? The bedding had already been cleared away, and the curtains had been drawn to allow the morning sun to pour in through the window. You were dead to the world there. Are you still tired? Deuce scratched his head. Maybe we stayed up too late yesterday. I just kept going on and on. Sorry. I was having fun too. When Yuya thought about it, this was the first time he'd stayed anywhere with anyone other than his family. Although he'd hardly said anything and mostly just listened to Ace and Deuce, he enjoyed himself. He hadn't wanted it to end, so they'd kept talking a little longer and then a little longer still until it had become very late indeed. You were supposed to be keeping us in line, Deuce. Ace woke Grim up and crossed his arms. Snap to it. Today's Saturday, and that means it's time for the unbirthday party. Being the magnanimous soul I am, I'll go and say my sorries to the house warden. But if he gives me any lip, well, keep a bed open for me. That's not the attitude of someone who's apologizing. Deuce fixed his necktie and stood up straighter. Should we head over then? The house warden will have our heads if we're late. Okay, good luck, guys, Yuya smiled. I'll cross my fingers that he forgives Ace. Huh? Ace's eyes grew as wide as saucers, and Deuce burst out laughing. Huh? What? Yuya stared at them in bewilderment. What did I do? You're talking like you're not part of this, Ace said. Guilt by association, man. You're part of the group, you. You're in the car, and it's already pulled out of the driveway. To put it another way, if Ace was going down, he was taking Yuya with him. Then Yuya started to get up, but Deuce held a hand out to stop him. I totally get it, you, Deuce said. The attitude this guy's giving you, who would want to go anywhere with him? If he's going to drag you into this mess, you'd at least want him to show you a little good faith, right? Oh, I'm actually... Deuce smirked and Ace tisked at him. Ah, fine, I get it, Ace shouted. Quiet already, please. Come with us, you. There, are you satisfied? Yuya really didn't need this from Ace, but at the same time, he felt kind of good to be invited properly, and he had even started to feel like he might be useful, even if it was just from watching from the sidelines. He scooped up Grim, who was still smacking his mouth, half asleep, and they left Ramshackle Dorm behind them. When they slipped through the Hall of Mirrors, he saw the same scene as the previous day unfold before him. A luscious green garden, an enormous maze, a beautiful building. Cater was even in the garden painting roses, just as he had been the day before. Good morning, Cater, Yuya called. Oh, Yui and Acey, Deucey, morning. Get a good sleep last night? Cater looked pointedly at the bleary-eyed Grim and laughed. Of course you didn't. I mean, a big sleepover party, living it up, living large. Did you share secrets with each other? Bond over pillow fights and card games? Or maybe you were talking about your crushes? Whoa, slow your roll, Ace said indignantly. You really just say whatever random thought pops into your head, huh? Ow, ouch, I mean random? Cater winced theatrically. And here I was trying to lighten the mood, since I figured you'd be all angst, AC. Angst? Ace rolled his eyes. I'm just giving him a chestnut tart, you know? A shadow appeared from the other side of the hedges. Huh? Yuya stared, unable to believe his eyes. Hey, me, don't be slacking on the job. Walking toward them was Cater, the very same Cater they were already talking to at that very moment. Huh? Grim let out a yelp. Perhaps the surprise of it had woken him up at last. What the heck is that? Grim, that's so rude. There are two of you, Diamond? Deuce exclaimed, looking back and forth between the two Caters. No way, you're twin, Cater? Ace's jaw hung open, but like you look too much alike to be twins. Ha 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 ha! We're not brothers, said the Cater they had first met as he waved his magical pen. He is me and I am him, split card. Cater shimmered like a mirage and his silhouette doubled then tripled. Yuya squinted to try to get a better look and was stunned at the sight of additional Caters on either side of the Cater holding the magical pen. Yikes! We're in for it. Look at the time, said the third Cater. Didn't get as much done as I'd hoped yesterday. Unless I hurry, it's off with my head, the fourth Cater said. Standing before four people with the same face, Yuya and his friends were at a loss for words. I literally never get tired of seeing Peep's first reaction to this baby. Cater tucked away his magical pen. It's my signature spell, Split Card. Makes magic duplicates of me. I'm the real KK, though. Copies? Deuce stared in amazement. They can talk and touch stuff? They're basically the same as the real thing. That's amazing, Diamond. That's gotta be super handy, Ace agreed. I maybe feel a twinge of respect for you for the very first time, Cater. Oof, is that actually a compliment? Cater flashed them a grin. Well, thanks either way. It is actually pretty handy. The more duplicates I make, though, the more exhausting it is, so I can't keep them around for too long. But I'm in a real tight spot at the moment, so I'm breaking out the whole gang. Tight spot? Yuya cocked his head to the one side, and the Caters hung their heads. Real me's lucky. Getting to chat with these cute first years, the second Cater said. Well, it's totally pointless to disobey me. We just gotta accept it, sighed the third Cater. Let's get this thing done, the fourth said, as the duplicates disappeared into the garden. The truth is, the roses are still not finished. The remaining Cater shook his head sadly. I'll be in some pretty hot water if I don't get done painting them before the unbirthday party starts, you know. Whoa, here we go, Ace said. Queen of Hearts rules nonsense. Oh, Cater snapped his fingers. While you're here, I have a message from Trey. He left your super-powered chestnut tart on the table in the garden, covered by a silver cake dome, so you can't see what it is. He suggested, what if you lifted the lid right in front of Riddle and made his whole day? That's clever for you, Deuce smiled appreciatively. I can't believe he thought about the presentation, too. Yeah, Cater grew pensive. It'll cause more trouble for us if you kiddies upset Riddle even more, too. Huh? Deuce's eyes grew wider. Cater winked at him, his face breaking into a grin. Is that what you're worried about? Oh, you scared me, so that was a joke. Cater grinned. Also, you can't come to the party looking like that. Oh, come on! Ace threw up his arms into the air. What now? Nyah! The constant nitpicking at this dorm, Grim howled. I can't take no more. I want to eat party food now! Ace and Grim stalked towards Cater in frustration. This was a whole lot of fuss just to get into the dorm. Given that Yuya simply wanted to live an uneventful life, rules were something he should have welcomed. After all, as long as he followed them, there'd be no trouble, and he wouldn't stand out. He'd always thought it was easier to follow a path laid out for him by someone else than to be given total freedom. He wasn't quite ready to say so out loud yet, but even he was starting to get fed up with the regulations of Heartslabyul dorm. There were simply too many of them. He wouldn't be surprised if Ace wasn't alone in his unwitting breaking of the rules. Now, it's nothing huge. Cater held up placating hands. Yui, Grimmy, you're our guests. You slay just the way you are. But you and Deucey need to glam it up, AC. The party's formal, one of the Queen of Hearts rules. I seriously can't anymore, Ace said, almost laughing. I guess it's hard for first years, Cater said, positioning Ace next to Deuce. But we're down to the wire here, so I will be your stylist today. Close those pretty peepers, babes. Ace and Deuce glanced at each other with perplexed looks on their faces, and then closed their eyes. Cater muttered something and waved his magical pen. The mage stone flashed, and a glowing rainbow aura enveloped Ace and Deuce. The light was imbued with a myriad of colors, shimmering around their black trousers and blazers. It shivered, poking at nooks and crannies, until it finally flashed even more dazzlingly, then disappeared. Yeah, you guys, Grim cried. Where'd those duds come from? Ace and Deuce looked each other over before staring at their own bodies in shock. Whoa, Ace exclaimed. This is some fancy fit. What happened to my uniform? Deuce gaped. Their outfits had transformed into brilliant costumes with white as their primary color. Their jacket collars featured a different color on either side, red on the right and black on the left, while the lapels had swapped colors, black on the right and red on the left. The lapels curved out before tapering down, so they formed a heart on Ace and Deuce's chests. Brooches patterned after card suits and heart-shaped accessories adorned the fronts of their outfits. While most of the decorative elements had a kitschy pop feel, the epaulettes and gold ooh, that is a word. Aiguillettes hanging down from their jackets cultivated an air of solemnity. Between their jackets, Ace had on a red vest and Deuce a black one to match the color of the suits painted on their faces. This is the Heartslabyul dorm uniform. At some point, Cater had also changed into the same outfit as Ace and Deuce. With a practiced air, he tightened the yellow and black sash around his waist. Dorm uniform? Dang it! Grim frowned and crossed his arms. Only you guys get to wear cool clothes? No fair. The dorm uniforms are outfits special to each dorm, designed to honor each of the Great Seven. Ours has a little pop of respect for our Queen of Hearts, Cater said as he gently stroked the brooch pinned to the left side of his chest. It was a white rose with red dripping down from the top. It looked very much like one of the roses in the garden that had so recently been painted in accordance with the Queen of Hearts rules. This fashionable treasure can only be worn by Heartslabyul students. It's supposed to show off our love for our dorm, so we wear them at dorm parties and when we're all hanging out together. We did this even back when the dorm wasn't quite so strict about the rules. Maybe it was because Cater was reminiscing about a time past, but it seemed to Yuya that his words were colored not only by affection, but also by a hint of grief. He struggled with whether to say something, but then Cater lifted his eyes from the brooch, already back to his usual lighthearted self. So, Cater said as he clapped his hands, Yui and Grimmy are one thing, but didn't anyone give you two the lowdown on the uniform? Actually, yeah, Ace mumbled while scratching his head awkwardly. The house warden said some stuff on the first day. I'm sorry, Deuce said as he threw his head down in a deep bow. I hadn't seen this uniform at all. I completely forgot about it. I get that. Cater gave them a warm smile. I mean, the dorm uniform's something we put on to show off. Sashaying around, showing up against other dorms. It's like saying, we're Night Raven College, we're Heartslabyul dorm, if we're going off campus. We almost never wear them to class or stuff like that. Between the ceremonial robe Yuya had seen at orientation, Yuya's current uniform, and now the dorm uniform, it was clear that there was a wide variety of clothing at Night Raven College, which seemed about right for a prestigious academy. But it's fierce, right? Cater did a little spin. White, red, and gold? I mean, you don't see too much of that combo in menswear. Plus, all these cutie brooches. I bet if you two posted pics to Magicam, you'd get a ton of likes. Well, I guess it kinda works, Ace said, seeming pleased. It's maybe not too bad. I think it's very cool, Deuce grinned. Thank you so much, Diamond. Grim whirled around at their feet, gritting his teeth, entirely vexed. How come only Ace and Deuce get them? I want a dorm uniform, too. A ramshackle dorm uniform? Personally, Yuya didn't think it was necessary, as the only thing that popped into his mind was an outfit made of rags strung together, as befitting of the dorm's name. Grim, however, was throwing a tantrum in response to Ace practically bursting at the seams with pride and boasting about his uniform. I want one. I have to have one, Grim yelled. Ramshackle Dorm's gonna make a real fancy, super gorgeous dorm uniform too, with gold and jewels and everything. It's gonna be way cooler than yours. You're with me, right, you? Oh, You gave him a wan smile. The regular uniforms may be good enough for me. And like, Grim, you don't even wear clothes. You don't need a dorm uniform. Excuse you. I am too wearing clothes. Check it out. This here's my best ribbon. While they were talking, Cater's avatars returned, apparently finished painting the roses. Cater made them disappear and turned back to Yuya and the others with an eyebrow arched and asked, Okay, ready, kiddos? Ace nodded firmly. The unbirthday party's in the garden, Cater said. Let's go. They followed Cater down the path until they came to a cute heart-shaped wooden door in the hedges. They went through it, and Yu discovered that this space on the other side was much bigger than he had imagined. The lawn was scattered with tables covered in white tablecloths and chairs of varying sizes. The tables were formally set with dishes and cutlery and held a gorgeous assortment of sweets. White cloth, green hedges, red roses. Even the sky above was a clear blue, like it had been specifically ordered for the day. It was a beautiful and somewhat chaotic party venue. Yaha! Yummy! Grim lunged for a nearby plate of cupcakes, but a second before he could bury his snout in baby blue and pink icing, Cater grabbed him and sat him in a chair. Whoa, whoa, Grimmy, Cater said. The star of the show's about to show, so hang on a teensy bit longer. A sudden fanfare shook the air, and Yuya, Ace, and Deuce immediately seated themselves. At the edge of the garden, a rabbit person called out loudly, "All hail our leader, the Red Sovereign himself." The chatter from different corners of the garden dropped away as everyone held their breaths. Like frightened mice hiding from cats, they shivered in fear and waited for the rabbit person to continue. House Warden Riddle! We salute you, House Warden Riddle! The dorm students leapt to their feet. In the gaps between them, Yuya could see an arch of blooming roses. Yeah, it's that giant baby, Grim exclaimed. Ah, Ace gasped, and Yuya slapped a hand over Grim's mouth. Riddle appeared beneath the arch in a black cape that was much longer than he was tall. With every measured step forward he took, the cloak caressed the cobblestone path, its rose-red lining catching the eye. The sleeves of his jacket were longer than Ace's or Deuce's, and the generous drape hung down to his knees. His sharp gaze was full of solemn majesty, while his fingers were wrapped in black gloves, and his high heels clacked against the ground. Everything, right down to each individual strand of red hair, radiated pride. The golden crown on his head and his billowing silhouette gave the impression of a queen. The garden roses are red and the tablecloths are white, Riddle said as he stood before the dorm students and swept his eyes over the garden. Trey saw Riddle's eyes pause on a teapot, and he quietly approached him. No need for concern. We've also prepped jam to spread on the nose of the dormouse in the teapot, should it become necessary. Very good. Riddle stamped the long scepter in his right hand against the ground. On the end of it, a red jewel flashed and a cold clang echoed through the air. He threw out his left hand to his side, and Trey immediately handed him a glass. Riddle raised the glass and said in a voice that carried throughout the garden, "Well then, on this most significantly unauspicious day, I bid all in attendance a very merry unbirthday." To a very merry unbirthday, the students lifted their own glasses in the air. At Riddle's signal, they were finally able to sit down. Here and there, Yuya heard sighs of relief. But even after the party started, the chatter of voices did not return. No one was talking. No one was moving. No one other than Grim, who practically climbed onto the table in his eagerness to start feasting. Everyone else was moving cautiously, even just to pick up their forks, and seemed to be extremely on edge, watching and waiting. Cater smiled crookedly. "You can tell, huh?" he whispered into Yuya's ear. "The unbirthday party's been a tradition since the time of the Queen of Hearts, so there's a lot of rules. The kids are a teensy bit jumpy that they might accidentally break one of them." "Makes sense," Yuya said as he nodded slowly. "But the party's off to a solid start. Not a single hitch," Cater grinned. "And the start's the hardest part. Now we just have to do the usual party things. Play it old school cool. The house warden's gotta be breathing a sigh of relief about now." Yuya looked over at Riddle filling out the red velvet chair. He was smiling and looking quite smug, perhaps because he was pleased by the seamless start of the event. "See, AC?" Cater turned to him eagerly. "Maybe now's your chance." Huh. Ace gritted his teeth and stood up. "Not gonna get anywhere by running away. Time to get this over with." He picked up the silver cake dome Trey had prepared for him in both hands and walked over to Riddle's table. Deuce smiled as he watched him go. He leaned slightly forward and whispered to Yuya and Grim, "Hey, how about we sneak up after him? He did say he wanted us to back him up when the push came to shove. Plus, I am dying to watch Ace apologize." "Nyahaha! Nice, love it. Let's go, you. We can make fun of Ace later," Grim said. Yuya felt kind of bad for Ace, but he let Grim pull him out of his seat. They crept close enough for Yuya to see the nervous expression on Ace's face as he came to stand beside Riddle. House Warden, sir," he said, "is now okay?" "Ah, it's you." Riddle looked him up and down. "The tart thief." Trey caught Ace's eye from his seat next to Riddle's. "Ace Chipola would like to speak with you," Trey explained. "Mm-hmm. I assume that the fact that you're here means you intend to follow the Queen of Hearts Rule 53? Riddle was surprisingly calm. Maybe Cater was right, and he was finally able to relax now that the important event had begun without incident. The only remaining concern was Ace's attitude. Yuya watched from the side on tenterhooks, but Ace was surprisingly meek. "Yes, House Warden," he assented obediently. His conduct was perfect for the time and place. It was astonishing and laudable, and it looked like Yuya needn't have worried. To his other side, Deuce was also nodding his head, satisfied. "To apologize for eating your tart without permission, sir, I made you a new one in the sincerest good faith." With a deft smile plastered on his face, Ace lifted the lid of the cake dome. "Voila! Please accept my deepest apologies." "Why, it's a chestnut tart," Riddle cried out. After resting for a night, the cream on the tart they had made together looked even more decadent. On top of the golden brown shortbread crust sat a rich, fluffy cream the color of light tea, adorned with large chestnuts, which added a delightful texture. The impeccable tart rested atop a white doily, looking mouth-watering and delicious. "Yes, are you surprised? Made with loads of fresh chestnuts and the tour de force." The pride in Ace's voice slowly trailed off. House Warden?" Riddle's face was turning redder by the second, changing into an expression of rage. "I can't believe this. How dare you bring a chestnut tart in here?" "Huh?" Ace stared at him blankly. Riddle leapt to his feet with a force that nearly knocked his chair over. "The Queen of Hearts Rule 562. One must never bring a chestnut tart to an unbirthday party. This is an utter flagrant violation." "The Queen of Hearts rules," Ace groaned. "Again? Do you understand what you've done? You've ruined an otherwise perfect unbirthday party. How will you atone for this?" His merciless condemnation echoed throughout the garden. How will I atone?" Ace cried out, bewildered. "I didn't know that was a rule." The color drained from Yuya's face, while Trey and Cater whispered to each other. "Wow, this could be bad. Chestnut tarts a no-go at an unbirthday party? Trey, did you know that?" Cater asked. "No, I've only memorized up to Rule 350. I never dreamed that even the kinds of cake would be regulated. I really botched this one. Big time," Trey whispered back. "Looks like it," Cater replied. The pair raced over and inserted themselves between the House Warden and Ace as if to protest the latter. "House Warden, allow me to apologize," Trey said quickly. "We were the ones who suggested making a chestnut tart. As third years and as the Vice House Warden, this was an act that lacked appropriate consideration." "Yes, that," Cater snapped a finger out at Trey. "I mean it. Didn't even occur to us that there'd be a rule like that, you know? This isn't Ace's fault, and we are like super duper sorry, okay?" Riddle glared at them. "You both seem to have misunderstood the situation. The issue is not the making of a chestnut tart. The issue is that he brought it today of all days, to our hallowed unbirthday party. He brings this thing. That is the transgression. To think you cannot see that," he snarled, and stared with loathing at the dessert Ace was holding. "Destroy the offending tart immediately." A student nearby snatched the tart away. Huh? Ace grabbed Riddle's arm. Hold up, please. We all worked super hard and gave everything we had to make that tart, you know? You could at least have a bite of it. Quiet, Riddle spat. There's no way I could eat such an audacious thing. Not after it turned this traditional party upside down. Nya, Grim leapt out in front of him. I've been sitting here listening to you go on about destroying the tart and how it's all gross. You've got some real nerve, buddy. If you want the tart gone, let me eat it. Grim. Oh, Grim. I'm sorry, Yuya hurriedly slapped a hand over Grim's big mouth. The monster was remarkably fixated on food, and Yuya had known that, but he'd been careless and let his guard down. Yuya knew if Grim became the focus of Riddle's ire, he, as his partner, wouldn't make it out unscathed. Riddle looked slightly surprised at Grim's presence, but then he sneered. What a greedy little cat. Be grateful to the Queen of Hearts that we are nothing if not polite hosts to our guest. Follow her example. I shall welcome you both to our tea party. But even for guests, the chestnut tart is forbidden. The moment you take a bite, it will be off with your heads. So go ahead if you dare. Now, toss that thing outside of the dorm this very second. Grim was muttering some complaint in Yuya's arms, and Ace slammed a hand down on the table and said, like I'm just gonna accept that. He had apparently completely forgotten the fact that he'd been trying to apologize to Riddle. All you do is cite one stupid rule after another. You sound totally foolish. Foolish? Riddle's face tightened. You certainly have some nerve talking back to me. AC, stop! Cater lunged forward at the pair glaring at each other, Trey by his side. You can't be saying that. Let's just take a deep breath, Kay? House Warden, please have mercy on him, Trey pleaded. He's only a first year. He doesn't know anything yet. I'll make sure to have a talk with him later. Riddle brushed away Trey's attempt at mediation and jabbed the end of his scepter at Ace. Listen well. In the year since I became House Warden, not a single student from Heartslabyul has dropped out or been held back a year. We are the only house that can boast such a feat. Furthermore, of everyone in this dorm, I have had the best academic standing and the greatest strength. Hence, I am the most correct. He flicked Ace's collar with the end of his staff, all expression abruptly vanishing from his face. His somewhat faraway gaze was so calm that it seemed out of place in this tense situation. It's not off with their heads because I want to do that. You are to blame for breaking the rules. The smallest rule violation will throw wide open the gate to anarchy. All of this is for your own sakes. And who asked you to do that? Ace snapped. No one needed to, Riddle sniffed. As House Warden, I have a responsibility and duty to guide the students of this dorm. You must simply obey me. There's no talking back aloud. I will not tolerate any response other than, yes, House Warden. Even for a tyrant, this is a bit too much. Like, wow, hooray, cool, no one failed. All that means is that the students of this dorm managed to push through despite your ridiculous mess of rules. It's got nothing to do with you and your lunatic obsession. Ace looked back at the students behind him. You guys think so too, yeah? Don't just stand there and stare. Say something. The students dropped their eyes to the ground and withered into themselves. They jumped at the mere opening of Riddle's mouth. Students, Riddle called, do you think that I'm foolish? That I'm a tyrant? Far from it, House Warden Riddle, sir, the student responded. We trust in your judgment, sir. 3 cheers for the House Warden, said another. What? You whine about him behind his back, but heaven forbid, and that that in the light of day you... Ace tutted indignantly. Spineless fair-weather cowards. The students started chanting as if to drown him out. 3 cheers for the House Warden, they shouted earnestly, fear tightening their faces. 3 cheers for the House Warden! Not a single voice was off the beat in the swirling chant. The command was unnerving. Trey and Cater fell silent. See, there you have it. It appears that you're the only odd one here. Riddle was triumphant amidst the acclaim. With enemies on all sides, Ace screwed up his face in frustration. It was a nightmare. Yuya felt dizzy at the terrible spectacle before his eyes. It was like the dream he had the previous night, but much worse. Because it wasn't some playing card soldier forced into his predicament now. It was Ace. Ace had helped him out too many times to count, and he wanted to repay that favor, and yet his feet were paralyzed. He was too scared to jump into the fight. Grim beat at Yuya's arms. Right, he couldn't stay here like this. But even though he knew that, his throat was dry as a bone, and just swallowing hurt. How was he supposed to produce words in that state? His heart felt like it was being ripped out of his chest at the sight of Ace standing there alone. He wanted to say something to him. Just when Yuya finally managed to open his mouth between ragged breaths, Deuce took a step forward. Oh no! Oh, the subtitles, no! Okay, well, let's see if I can get them working again. Hopefully I can. Are you gonna do it? Are you going to work? No, yes, no, yes, no. Bye-bye. Well, this scene, I feel like there's more context to this scene in the novel than there was in the game. Like, I didn't realize that, oh, there they go. Are they coming? There they are. There's the subtitles. I didn't realize that Trey and Cater were, like, whispering and that they, like, ran over. I thought that they were already, like, over there. I thought we all went up as a giant group. But apparently that's not the case. Which is very interesting to me. But anyway, let's continue. I'm in agreement with Ace's opinion, Deuce said. Like when he had faced the upperclassman from Savannah Claw, he leveled a powerful gaze at Riddle. You're Deuce Spade, yes? Riddle said coldly. Do you intend to disobey me, the House Warden? You do understand how serious a crime that is. Going against my boss is bad. It's not the sort of thing an honor student would do. That's what I've thought all this time. Deuce slapped a fist into the open palm of his other hand. He shouted as if to shake off all doubt. But overlooking something wrong is exactly the sort of thing an honor student would never do. Ace's jaw dropped and then he exploded in laughter. Oh man, you actually say some good stuff sometimes. Quiet, Deuce snapped. I'm not saying it for you. Rules are important, but I think this is beyond irrational. Saying that the tart we all made is odious? Punishing you for just bringing it? It's not right. Yeah, exactly, Ace nodded vigorously. What's the serious crime here? How is this for our sakes? I take it back. I will not apologize to a selfish little tyrant like you. Riddle froze. What did you just say? His hushed tone was particularly frightening. As Yuya shuddered, Grim slipped out of his arms and bared his teeth at Riddle. He said you're a big baby of a selfish tyrant who wastes food. Huh? Ace gasped. I didn't say all that, though, Deuce exclaimed. Yuya looked at Riddle, who was now purple with rage, and reached a hand out, but he was too late. The House Warden swung his scepter down. Off with your heads, he shouted. A dazzling light flashed, blanketing Yuya's field of view in white, and Grim shrieked. When his vision finally returned to normal, Yuya saw Grim, Deuce, and Ace blinking in confusion. Ah, he sighed. Deuce, Grim, you're next. They looked down at themselves. Just like Ace, they were now wearing large collars. Whoa, Deuce grabbed his own with a cry. The House Warden, curses. He got me right while I was watching. Pathetic. Again, Grim whined. I hate this stupid thing. You grab on. Okay, Yuya raced over and yanked on Grim's collar with all his might. But no matter how hard he pulled, it wouldn't budge. It was the same with Deuce's and Ace's shackles. Grim scrabbled at his with his sharp claws, but the solid lock didn't even get a scratch. Riddle panted, hands clenched into tight fists. His face was so red, Yuya almost expected steam to rise from him. Trey, Cater, he said shrilly. Throw these ill-mannered lots out. Yes, Housewarden. Trey and Cater stepped forward, as if to protect Riddle. Huh? Ace looked back and forth between them. Hang on, hey, we're not done talking here. Hey, Trey? Cater? Ace entreated. Sorry, AC. Can't disobey the Housewarden, you know, Cater said. But Deuce looked shocked. I misjudged you, Diamond. And do you think this is funny, Clover? And on the next page, we have Riddle with the poutiest pout I have ever seen on his face, and Trey and Cater looking down on us, with their faces half in shadow. It is a wild image. Everybody looks so disappointed. Interesting. On the next page, the story continues. Don't think badly of me, Trey said, his face devoid of expression, and Yuya and his friends floated up into the air. Wrapped in Trey and Cater's magic, they were carried to the garden entrance. Hey, put me down! I said put me down! Ace kicked and flailed, and the tips of his fingers grazed Trey's hat. The group floated up even higher, and they all struggled against the invisible force. They no doubt looked ridiculous to anyone watching on the ground. Ace, Deuce, Trey said, his voice pitched only so that they could hear him. Chill for a bit at Ramshackle Dorm. You keep an eye on them. We'll talk to the Housewarden and make it so that they can come back to the dorm if they apologize. His words, meant to be comforting, were actually cruel, as they seemed to condemn the first years, implying they were in the wrong and there was no room for discussion. Who's gonna apologize? Ace roared. I'm not in the wrong here. I will never, ever apologize. Leaving only their shouting behind, they were evicted from the party. The door closed in stark refusal of them. I'm so angry! Ace punched the door. From the other side, they heard Riddle say, Now, let's get this party back on track. In order to ensure that the croquet tournament is carried out smoothly, we will proceed at a run. Yes, Housewarden, came the mandated response. That guy's so full of himself. Little ginger megalomaniac. Who does he think he is, the Queen of Hearts, right? Ace fumed. Then he turned around and his eyes grew wide. Deuce stared with empty eyes. All signs of his earlier passion drained away. This ugly collar. I'm no better than Ace now. The shock of being collared had hit him hard. His shoulders were slumped forward and Ace pouted at him. What's that supposed to mean? Don't go all soft on me now, man. The collar pinches, and it's heavy. Grim whined, scratching at his neck unhappily. Yuya reached his hand out and was about to ask if he was okay, but abruptly stopped. Did he have any right to ask? I never thought Housewarden Rosehearts would get so angry, Deuce moaned. When you challenged him like that, Ace arched a skeptical eyebrow. That Tyrant was obviously going to go off. I didn't say anything to reject the Housewarden himself. I figured he'd get it if we could talk. The problem was Grim saying he was a selfish baby. I mean, of course he was gonna flip out about that. Yeah, you went a little too far, Grim, Ace agreed. But it's just the tart. He was gonna Grim moaned. Collars hung around the neck of each member of the dejected group, with the exception of Yuya. He hadn't been able to speak up against Riddle the way Deuce and Grim had. He'd simply stayed silent and watched as Ace was punished. Hey, you're the prefect, yeah? Ace poked his shoulder. How come you weren't keeping an eye on Grim? You never know what mess he's gonna make. I mean, come on, hold him on a leash. Yuya looked up, feeling like he was being criticized for abandoning Ace. Maybe Ace had totally given up hope on him. He felt so guilty, he couldn't look him in the eye. You? Ace said. Something wrong? He stammered. What? Ace furrowed his brow quizzically. If you don't tell me, I won't know, man. Are you mad at me? He was not brave enough to pose the question to Ace's face. Now, belatedly, he understood how Ace had felt when he'd asked Yuya the same thing. It was like they were right back where they started. An anxious vortex of regret took over his heart. He'd been able to stop everyone from fighting at the Enchanted Mine, so why hadn't he been able to stand up for Ace back there? Even though Ace had saved him, and they were finally getting to be friends, he hated his cowardice. His waffling made Ace cry out at last. Come on, what? Deuce also appeared troubled, noticing that something was wrong with Yuya. Only Grim paid no mind to the affairs of humans and continued to tug on the collar around his neck, grunting. Rah! If I could just get this collar off, I'd give that little grouch a run for his money. You're really racking up those collars. Quite the impressive collection, an unfamiliar voice said suddenly. Yuya looked over to see a ball floating above Grim's head. He stared at it for a second, then cried out with Ace and Deuce in unison, Ghost Head! The ball was in fact a human head with pointed triangular ears adorned with a variety of gold accessories that protruded from the purple bob with layered highlights. And then the head moved. Monster! Grim cried out, looking up a little belatedly. He had hid himself behind Yuya's legs, using them as a shield. Whoops, forgot to add my body out there, the head said, and grew a neck. Yuya stared in astonishment as it kept going, producing a body from top down in short order. Shoulders, arms, chest. When heavy purple boots materialized at the very end, the head had become a boy. What are you even? Grim yelped. The boy was wearing an oversized white shirt with its collar hanging open over his shoulders, a purple and pink top visible underneath. The top was the same color as the striped tail that peeked out from the royal blue pants covered in badges. The badges were colorful and cute, and many were arrow-themed, with words like this way, that way, and back. The name is... Oh, can I pronounce Chenya's legal name correctly? Oh, I don't think so. Artemievich Pinker. Am I a cat? Am I a person? A mom wrath with a knack for magic? I am a profound mystery. What? Artemievich Pinker. People usually just call me Chenya. Let's just say I'm not from the other side of the looking glass. Chenya, sir? Or are you a first year? Which dorm and year are you in? It was no wonder Deuce was asking, as Chenya wasn't wearing the colored armband that denoted which dorm a student was in, nor was he wearing a vest or wielding a magical pen. Grim crept close and sniffed at him, but the boy was carefree and paid him no mind. Why don't you try to guess? He said with a smile. I don't care about introductions or whatever at the moment, thanks. Ace crossed his arms with a cold look on his face. After the insanity that teapot tyrant put me through, I'm not in the mood for whatever this is. Just leave me alone. Or, if you want to sit there and make fun of this collar, then I got a few ideas of my own, okay? Chenya chuckled. Riddle? A tyrant? I get it. You're not actually wrong there. That guy's always been strict, even since he was wee. Maybe he had witnessed the earlier exchange, or maybe he had determined Riddle was the culprit from seeing Ace's collar. Either way, Chenya spoke of Riddle quite familiarly, and Yuya had only ever heard Trey talk about him so casually. Do you maybe know Riddle well? He asked. I may know him if knowing's where's it's at, Chenya grinned. Or I may not if knowing's where it's not. That's not an answer, Grim cried. Quit futzing around, you jerk. Pick one already. Chenya was slippery, giving the group nothing to grab onto, and he had a profoundly mysterious air about him. His lips pulled back into a crescent moon of a smile. What? You guys want to know about Riddle? His four-eyed friends got the answer. Four-eyed friend, Deuce frowned. You mean Clover? What? Chenya stared at him blankly. He knows a lot about Riddle. Who? Clover, are you messing with me right now? Deuce yelled angrily, and Chenya laughed airily. Oh, sure. That kid's known Riddle real well since they were wee babes. If I wanted to know something about Riddle, I'd head straight for Four Eyes. Since they were wee babes, Deuce frowned. You mean before starting school here? Were Clover and Roseheart's friends growing up? So that's why they're all buddy-buddy. Ace glared down the door to the garden. But they don't seem like they've known each other since they were kids. Well, if that's what you think, then that's how it is. What are you asking me for? Chenya said and whirled around. Later. His body began to disappear from the toes and up. Wait, Yuya called out to him, wondering if they'd made him unhappy. But Chenya was only ahead again, and he hummed a happy little tune. His head bobbed gently up and down and receded until it eventually disappeared. What even was that? Deuce murmured. He was one weird guy. They all nodded firmly in agreement. We can't just accept everything this Chenya guy said as fact, Ace said, after watching the Catboy disappear. But at any rate, I think we gotta talk to Trey. He said to wait at Ramshackle Dorm because he was going to fix things so that we could apologize and everything be okay. Deuce grinned and shifted his gaze to Ace. So, you gonna wait like a good little boy? As if. Apologizing just to get this thing off? Not cool. Not going to happen. Ace grinned in the same daring way as Deuce. I'm not gonna wait for him to come get us. We're gonna set up a little ambush. Because that is the best of ideas. Surely. Surely that will be the best idea in the world, but we'll have to see in Chapter 13. The unbirthday party went off without a hitch after Ace and the other dissenters were chased out, which undoubtedly led to students letting down their guards. Queen of Hearts Rule 249. Flamingo caretakers are to don pink attire. Riddle's voice rang out through the silent lounge. The second-year students dropped to his knees, shaking. The blood drained from his cheeks, making the red suit mark on one of them painfully vivid. It was supposed to be your turn to feed the flamingos today, and yet you're in your dorm uniform. Why are you not wearing pink? Riddle demanded. I sincerely apologize, House Wharton, the second year repeated. My pink clothes were in the laundry, and the flamingos were hungry after the croquet tournament. Trey exhaled quietly. They used rainbow flamingos as bats and hedgehogs as balls during the game of croquet played at the unbirthday party. It had been this way ever since the time of the Queen of Hearts, and the exhausted, hungry flamingos needed to be fed right away. The boy was likely telling the truth, but excuses and their ilk had the opposite effect on Riddle. Off with your head, came Riddle's merciless verdict. When the fresh collar appeared around his neck, the poor student screamed and fell over awkwardly. Riddle looked down at him and said, Do you think I enjoy having to do this? You're the one who broke the rules. As much as I want to, I cannot ignore these infractions. It is for your own sake. I have a lot of feelings about Riddle when he's saying things like this, and I know that they're coming from a very specific place that is not Riddle. But man... He had essentially told Ace the same thing. In the face of this statement, Trey was powerless to say anything. It had been like this whole year since Riddle had become House Warden. Trey, take him away, Riddle demanded. Yes, House Warden, Trey said as he looped an arm around the student. You're so mean, the student wept, his head hanging. Trey could only support him silently, unable to say anything. Abruptly, he felt the student's weight shift and become lighter. He looked over to find Cater holding the student's other arm. Trey, Cater said, abnormally serious. He usually sounded so lighthearted when he called Trey's name. Being sociable was one of the secrets to his success. And Cater only said his name so seriously when it was truly important. Are you sure this is all okay? There's nothing I can do, Trey replied, eyes dark beneath Cater's reproachful gaze. Oh, Cater said, averting his eyes. He didn't say anything more. Trey moved forward, relieved and despairing in equal measure. He didn't have the luxury of thought. Another incident would push Riddle over the edge. He had to get this student to their room right away. The red of the evening sun was beginning to color the sky when Yuya and the others caught sight of their prey. They stood up from the stone stairs in front of the library where they'd been lying in wait. We've been expecting you, Clover, Deuce greeted him. The recipe book with the chestnut tart recipe had been borrowed from the library, and Ace had been certain Trey would come to return it. Sure enough, he was there. Ace glared up at Trey, who was about half a head taller than he was. "We've still got a problem with the way House Warden Riddle is handling all of this," he said without preamble. "I thought you might say that." Trey gave them a pained smile. He looked even more tired than he had at the party. "And? Are you telling me to do something about it?" "Not telling you anything," Ace replied. "Come clean with us. What's your take on Riddle? You've been pandering to him ever since you were kids? He's perfect little yes man." "Since we were kids?" Trey frowned. "Who told you that?" "This guy Chenya," Yuya replied. Trey nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Chenya, huh? Well, that explains it." "I know you're the Vice House Warden right now, but you're older than Riddle, right, Clover? Wouldn't the House Warden listen to his elder?" Deuce asked, as if it were only natural, perhaps thinking that respecting elders was the honor student thing to do. "Things would be so much better if that were the case," Trey smiled vaguely. "But I seriously can't do anything that would be a rejection of him." "Geez, I mean, come on, man," Ace cried out. "You know that both you and the House Warden are actually bonkers, right?" "You scared out of your head," Grim spat angrily, "by a guy younger than you. That's so sad." "I can't," Trey said as he shook his head slowly. "Everything about Riddle, his entire self, was created as the product of strict rules." "Created? By who?" Ace demanded, dissatisfied. "Can you keep this between us?" Trey asked, and then indicated the nearby benches with his gaze. The evening sun grew deeper, and the streetlights began to flicker on. The group sat on the 2 wooden benches beneath a streetlight, Ace and Trey on one, and Deuce, Yuya, and Grim on the other. Trey began speaking quietly. "Chenya maybe already told you this, but me, Riddle, and Chenya, we're all from the same place. We grew up together in the same neighborhood. I've known Riddle for ages, long before he even knew who I was. His parents are famous magical healers. There's not a soul in our hometown who doesn't know who they are." "Magical healers?" Yuya frowned. This was an unfamiliar term. He understood the word separately, but he couldn't quite understand what they meant in this world. "Mm-hmm," Deuce nodded beside him firmly. "Like super doctors who use magic." "What kind of explanation is that?" Ace rolled his eyes and looked at Yuya. "They heal spells that are cast on patients and use magic to help with difficult treatments. I guess real high-level treatments for some races can only be done by magical healers. More than a few Night Raven college grads end up as magical healers. My brother says it's pretty elite." "Yeah, it's a difficult job," Trey agreed. "Only some doctors can make it all the way to that level, and Riddle's mom is especially gifted." "Oh, that makes sense. He's basically a spoiled brat," Ace snorted in laughter. "Like he was brought up with a silver spoon in his mouth? Totally tracks with his selfish little baby ways." "It's the other way around." Trey shook his head forcefully from side to side. "His mom demanded the same kind of perfection from Riddle. She built up this very regimented life for him, so he was constantly studying, from the time he woke up to the time his head hit the pillow. He told me his days were scheduled down to the minute." "To the minute?" Ace and Deuce gasped, their eyes opening wide in surprise. Yuya was also stunned. A young child stuck in the life of constant supervision? He thought back on his own childhood. He'd been a quiet kid who spent a lot of time at home alone, and although his life hadn't been particularly eventful, it hadn't been hard. While he hadn't had friends, his days were carefree and peaceful in the way only a child's life can be. "Whoa, pretty strict." Grim screwed up his face. "Yeah." "Strict. Maybe that was the only word that described it." "It wasn't just his schedule," Trey continued. "Everything was decided for him. What he ate, what he wore, what soap he used, who his friends were. One time when we were little, I asked him what his favorite color was, and you know what the guy said? Mother told me to like green because it's good for my vision. I mean, she even picked his favorite color for him. I can't even imagine what that would feel like." He smiled faintly, lost in his memories, his expression resigned, befitting the remembrance of a past he could do nothing about. None of the other students could imagine Riddle's childhood, as it went beyond strict. It was a life without freedom. It wasn't normal for a young child to be forced to live with countless rules. Riddle followed her rules without complaint, though, Trey told them. He wanted to live up to his parents' expectations. He perfected that signature spell when he was 10. When he was 10? When he was 10? What do you mean when he was 10? So that means if he perfected it when he was 10, that means he had to have learned it earlier than 10. He had to have learned it like 8 or 9 and then perfected it. What do you mean? That is so young. That's wild. What? Huh? Naturally, when it comes to grades, he's been at the top of his class ever since middle school. He's still at the top even here at Night Raven College, which maybe gives you an idea of how amazing he is, yeah? Ace and Deuce fell silent, troubled looks on their faces. Naturally, they understood only too well how competitive this prestigious school was, and the fact that Riddle had managed to learn his fearsome signature spell at the tender age of 10 gave them food for thought as mages themselves. Yeah, because Ace doesn't even have one yet, right? I mean, Deuce gets his in book 5, but up until this point, Ace don't have one. 10 years old. 10. I don't. All right. 10 years old? At that point, I hadn't even manifested any magic yet. I was just out there fooling around, and I mean, my grades? Deuce sighed and looked at Trey with a complicated mix of emotions on his face. The house warden really is incredible, huh? And it's not just a matter of talent or whatever. You can't accomplish everything he has without a lot of hard work. That's why Riddle's convinced that binding people with rigid guidelines is for their own benefit. In his eyes, it's a fast track to personal growth. Because that's how it worked for him, Trey said. So when he told Ace this was all for our sakes, that was how he really feels? Deuce asked. I just assumed. You thought he was being mean. Trey shook his head. No, that's Riddle's unvarnished truth. At the very least, I think it is. Listen, why do you think Riddle is so strict about the Queen of Hearts rules? Because he loves hating on the dorm students, Grim replied immediately. Oh, I'm the house warden. Obey me. Trey gave him a pained smile. Of course, he feels responsibility as the house warden of Heartslabyul, but regulations have always been more important than anything to Riddle. He sees the violation of those rules as an inexcusable offense. Why's that? Grim looked baffled, but Yuya more or less knew the answer. Because if he accepts that rules can be broken, he said slowly, then that's basically a rejection of his own self, because he was created by rules. Trey nodded at the group. So that was it. To Riddle, his own past experience was the entire world. A strict life with no freedom? That Riddle had then become an accomplished student, and mage was maybe not the ideal result. Given his own marvelous achievements, he was no doubt convinced that this rigidity was the correct way of doing things, and it made sense that he would impose the same restrictions on the dorm student. Trey looked at Ace and then turned his gaze on the others. Look, I totally get why you see Riddle as a tyrant, and I know his way of doing things is not right. But I can't bring myself to hold that against him, because I know what he's gone through, all the things that pushed him to this point. Seeing his grave face, Yuya, Deuce, and even Grim were at a loss for words. Ace was the only one to recover. All right, now I get it, he said as he stood up and pointed an accusing finger at Trey. It's your fault Riddle's like this. What? Yuya said, doubting his ears. What's that supposed to mean? Grim and Deuce whispered from where they sat on either side of him. Yuya could only reply, I don't know either. Trey's fault? As Yuya listened to Trey telling them about Riddle's painful past, he did feel like Trey was a bit too nice, but he hadn't thought Trey bore any responsibility, like Ace was saying. Ace's words seemed to surprise Trey as well. His eyes grew rounder and he gaped at the lowerclassman, but Ace paid no attention to him. Riddle didn't get to choose his parents, Ace continued in an even more forceful tone. That's too bad, but it's a fact. Can't change that. But from the way you're talking, you pretty much always thought what his parents were doing to him was wrong, yeah? Trey started and then fell silent. His lips moved several times as if he felt compelled to say something, but no sound came. Oh no! Not the subtitles! No! Oh gosh, okay. Well, let's see if they'll restart. Let's see. Ay. Where was I when it stopped? Oh, I was all the way at the top of the page. Man. But yeah, that's wild. I can't believe 10 years old. And the fact that he had his favorite color picked out too? What? I feel like that's almost beyond. That's beyond. That's just beyond. It's just beyond. Okay. Let's start back up from where the subtitles stopped, shall we? Ace was the only one to recover. All right, now I get it, he said as he stood up and pointed an accusing finger at Trey. It's your fault Riddle's like this. What? Yuya said, doubting his ears. What's that supposed to mean? Grim and Deuce whispered from where they sat on either side of him. Yuya could only reply, I don't know either. Trey's fault? As Yuya listened to Trey telling them about Riddle's painful past, he did feel like Trey was a bit too nice, but he hadn't thought Trey bore any responsibility, like Ace was saying. Ace's words seemed to surprise Trey as well. His eyes grew rounder and he gaped at the lowerclassman, but Ace paid no attention to him. Riddle didn't get to choose his parents, Ace continued in an even more forceful tone. But that's too bad. It's a fact, though. Can't change that. But from the way you're talking, you pretty much always thought what his parents were doing to him was wrong, yeah? Trey started and then fell silent. His lips moved several times, as if he felt compelled to say something, but no sound came out. Sure, you couldn't stop the grown-ups. You were a kid, too. But Riddle's making the exact same mistake his parents did, and you gotta tell him to his face. This is bad. You gotta stop. You gotta correct him. You're going easy on him because he had it rough as a kid? Don't you see what that's leading? You're letting him become a pariah. Ace, man, come on, Deuce said and leaned forward. You're going too far. But I mean, it's true, Ace protested. There isn't a single person in our dorm who likes that guy right now. Deuce was pressed for a response. It was cruel, but it was true. The guy they saw in the cafeteria, classmates they bumped into during breaks, even Heartslabyul student they encountered had only harsh words to say about Riddle. Such as, I can't breathe when that guy's around, and I don't want to go back to the dorm. Trey and Cater alone were different. Yuya had seen them cover for the house warden so many times now, and he'd always assumed that they must like him. But hearing Trey acknowledge Riddle's mistakes like this, he realized he didn't truly understand how they really felt. Maybe it wasn't strictly a matter of like or dislike. Maybe it was just that they were Riddle's allies in the end. So what then? Ace said, glaring at Trey. Sympathy keeping your mouth shut? Or are you afraid he'll take your head off too? That's pathetic. The area was dark now, but Ace's eyes glittered beneath the street lamps, and the anger that burned in them paired perfectly with the words he spat out at Trey, bearing the full force of Ace's spirit. You say all this stuff, acting like you're the nice guy here, but the fact is, you don't want to rock the boat. You're afraid of having to bring it up. That's all, isn't it? You guys are supposed to be friends, then act like it. There was no response from Trey. He was hanging his head and his face was in shadow, so Yuya couldn't even read his expression. It was Yuya who broke the silence. "Sorry," he said. "Huh?" Ace looked at him curiously. "Why are you apologizing? I'm talking about Trey here." "Because I get it," he replied. "When everyone was yelling at you, saying you were wrong, I really wanted to tell them you weren't wrong. I wanted to stand up and be an ally, but I was so scared I couldn't say anything." Yuya felt he could understand Trey and his inability to stop Riddle. Pointing out that something bad was bad, making someone mad at you, those were scary things. He'd experienced the terror that made someone freeze in place several times. An aversion to rocking the boat, the self-protective urge to not stir things up, he knew these feelings painfully well. Deuce had been dazzling as he stood by Ace's side, and Yuya was jealous. He thought Ace was exactly right to push Trey now, and he was ashamed of himself for running away. He was so pathetic he could hardly stand it. Lowering his head, he felt the corners of his eyes burning hotly. If he cried now, he would be so miserable he would have to crawl into a hole and never come out again. He took a deep breath and pushed the tears back. "Huh? Is that why you've been acting weird?" Ace asked, sounding so surprised that Yuya timidly raised his face. Perhaps seeing the redness of his eyes even in the dark, Ace gave him a stunned look. "That's just stupid. I never asked you to do that. If I went around forcing people to be on my side, I'd be pulling the same dictatorial stuff as Riddle." "Huh? No, but you were in real trouble," Yuya protested. "And you were angry about how scared everyone was." "That's because they've all been whispering behind the guy's back. The way I figure it, if you've got something to say, then stand up and say it. But you hate fighting, and that's valid. But you don't have to force yourself into a fight just to stick up for me. Jumping into the mix, sit back, relax, whatever you want to do is you, man." He glanced at Trey and smiled maliciously. "Unlike somebody here, you'll tell me if you think I'm wrong." "Ha ha ha," laughed Deuce, who stood beside him. "You're really getting carried away. I mean, this from the guy who begged for backup to go apologize to the house warden?" "Yeah, exactly," Grim chimed in as he bobbed his head up and down. "And now you're acting like you're better than us, all holier than thou." "Shut your trap," Ace growled. "Look, if you say something I don't like, I'm gonna argue with it, okay? But I'm not gonna get mad at you for it. I'm not a baby." Even while peevishly sulking, Ace was so strong. Yuya looked at him in awe. He never met anyone like him before. At first glance, he'd been afraid of Ace. After getting dragged into the mess he and Grim had caused, Yuya had felt like Ace was a hassle to be avoided. He was the contrary, glib, and immature, but Yuya now realized he was also trustworthy and reliable. Ace would never run from something scary. Yuya thought the way Ace didn't hesitate to face whatever trouble might confront him was extremely cool. Even Yuya, who had avoided growing close with others before now, could appreciate how previous Ace's resolve was. "You make sure to get yourself set up to run away from fights, though, Ace told him. "I can't have your back all the time." "Right, got it. Thanks," Yuya said with a smile, and Ace grinned back at him. He looked relieved, though. Perhaps he was just awkward with the sentiment. Deuce also seemed relieved at seeing Yuya back to his usual self. "You don't gotta listen to anyone," Ace says. Grim... Oh, sorry. "You don't gotta listen to anything Ace says," Grim said to Yuya. "Do you even know what you're talking about?" Ace asked, arching an eyebrow at the monster. "Not a clue," Grim told him happily. "I'm just annoyed at you being all high and mighty." Okay. Grim. Okay. "I'll agree with you on the high and mighty part, but he's not wrong," Deuce said. He patted Yuya's shoulder. "And you don't need to get all bummed out. It was thanks to you telling me that it was okay to go against the house warden that I was able to stand up for Ace myself." "Huh?" Surprised, Yuya shook his head back and forth. "I never said anything like that, though." You told me that standing up and saying that something is wrong when it's wrong instead of gritting my teeth and putting up with it is also the honor student thing to do, didn't you? Yuya gaped at Deuce as he realized he had indeed said that. He hadn't wanted to see Deuce looking so glum, not when he'd been so amazing and had stuck up for Yuya against those delinquents. So he tried to tell him everything he truly felt. But he never imagined that this would give Deuce the push he needed to stand up for Ace in such a dazzling way. Yuya nearly shouted with joy and awe at the thought that Deuce, a boy who seemed so fully developed, with his strong convictions, would be inspired by his own words. You here says some wide stuff sometimes, huh? Grim laughed merrily. That's my henchhuman for you. So I guess I'm the real reason you could go all out, Deuce. Deuce scoffed. Grim, get your feet back on the ground. Most of the trouble you's gotten caught up in was your fault. Deuce glanced up. The rest of it was your fault, Ace. The whole chandelier thing was your fault, Ace protested hotly. That's all over now, Yuya interjected. Don't fight. The boys cursed at each other while Trey watched them silently from the bench to the side, until his gaze abruptly shifted. Ooh, beautiful. Wait. Oh, okay. Hold on. Who could possibly... Place your bets now. Who do you think said, ooh, beautiful? And it's surprising all of our boys. Who is it? Who do we think? Who do we think it is? Cast your votes now. Oh my gosh. My. Crowman, Crowley. Well, let us see. Rook? Rook is who I thought at first, too. And I was like, huh? Why is Rook here? But when Yuya looked back, the head mage was standing there, pressing a handkerchief to the corners of his eyes. Head mage? Deuce exclaimed and leapt to his feet. Yuya and Grim also took a step back in surprise. How long had he been standing there? The head mage's black clothes blended into the night like camouflage. Friendship in conflict, the passion of youth, the head mage sighed. It's tremendously moving. I might just use Mr. Trapola's words in my next speech before the student body. Don't you dare, Ace exclaimed as his face turned red with anger. I take it all back. Head Mage Crowley, what are you doing here? Yuya asked. A single eye closed beneath the mask. A wink, apparently. Just doing a little research in the library. I'm quite curious myself about your original world, you. But when Mr. Clover invited you into this conversation with such an unusually serious look on his face, my interest was naturally piqued. And here I am. The head mage said. So he's literally been here for this entire thing. So you've been here for... Crowley! Crowley, why? Yeah. Oh, that's true. A better question would have been, why wouldn't Rook be there? That's fair. Yeah, I guess at least he's honest about it, but still. Maybe he felt awkward just like walking around them. But I don't think they would have seen him. I don't think they would have cared. Oh gosh, alright. So you've been here from like the first second? Ace sighed and his shoulders slumped. Head mage, this is... Cater began as he stood... Wait, Cater? Where did you come from? What? Cater began as he stood up and the head mage checked him with a hand. Now, it's not the least bit unusual for there to be trouble in a dorm. Naturally, it'd be best if there weren't, but we must make do. Where did Cater come from? Wait. Is that a typo? It literally says Cater. I don't... There was no previous mention of him, and I don't know that there's going to be another mention of him. What? He's been in the cardboard the entire time. It didn't mention it previously. No. Trey was going back to the library to return the book, but it didn't say Trey and Cater, because when they were sitting on the bench, it was Ace and Trey on one bench, and Deuce, Grim, and Yuya on the other bench. There was only 5 of them. But Cater's here now, I guess. And Cater began as he stood up, which implies that he was sitting, which makes no sense, because Cater's not here. At least he hasn't been established into the scene. So? What? And maybe it'll get explained? I don't know. Or maybe they meant to say Clover and they said Kate. Let's find out. Let's see if Cater shows up literally anywhere else in the rest of the scene. Now, it's not the least bit unusual for there to be trouble in a dorm. Naturally, it'd be best if there weren't, but we must make do, the head mage said. Yes, sir, Trey said as he bowed. I'm so sorry for the disturbance. I'll get things under control soon. Huh? Get things under control? You're still talking that garbage? Ace complained. Deuce and Grim also crossed their arms and scowled. There's absolutely zero chance of me bowing down and apologizing to Riddle with all those other guys. Yeah, no way I'm saying sorry to that selfish jerk, Grim chimed in. Grim is one thing, but what are you planning to do, Ace? Deuce, Trey asked. At some point, when you get the collars off, you will have to go back to the dorm. If you don't apologize, it'll be nearly impossible to get Riddle to forgive you. You can't crash at Ramshackle Dorm forever. The Academy would never let you pass to stay out. What? Never give you... Okay, sorry. I can't read. The Academy would never give you a pass to stay out to start with, right? He looked to the head mage for backup. That is true, the head mage nodded. Special permission simply run... What? I think Cater took my ability to read away. That is true, the head mage nodded. Special permissions simply ruin public morals. A fundamental principle of the college is that students spend time in their own dorms. But if you simply cannot get along with the house warden, then you also have the option of transferring. Transferring? You mean they can change which dorm they're in? Yuya was pretty sure he'd heard dorms were selected based on the nature of one's essence. He recalled the sensation of the dark mirror rifling through his insides, a bizarre feeling he'd never experienced before. He hadn't needed anyone to explain to him that something special was happening. The process to determine the dorm assignment seemed serious. How could it possibly change? It does happen from time to time, Crowley told him. Outside of issues with the original dorm, a student may discover a subject they desperately wish to study in another dorm, or students with more than a single essence may struggle with advancement. Overturning the decision of the Dark Mirror does necessitate quite a burdensome process and a new ritual, but it's not impossible. A transfer would be one way of handling this, but since Ramshackle Dorm wasn't recognized as an official dorm, Ace and Deuce probably wouldn't be able to move in there. One of the other dorms might accept them, however. Some bad blood would remain, but the transfer would draw a line in the conflict with Riddle, and the whole thing would die down soon enough. Or so Yuya thought, but Ace looked like he wasn't having any of it. Well, that would make me feel like I was running away with my tail between my legs. Doesn't feel right to me, he challenged. If that case, the head mage said, and clapped his hand as if to start down another track. Why don't you simply challenge Mr. Rosehearts for the leadership of Heartslabyul? What? Everyone except the head mage cried out in unison. Trey stared in disbelief. Head mage, please, that's absurd, he protested. Ace shoved Trey aside and leapt at the idea. Is that even possible, he asked. For real? Of course, Crowley nodded. There are several ways to become house warden. Quite often they are appointed by the previous house wardens, but more than a few house wardens obtained their positions via a duel against the current house warden. The head mage is right, it is a possibility, Trey reluctantly said. And since it's forbidden to handicap your opponent before the duel, you could get Riddle to remove the collar without having to apologize to him. But what would Riddle say? Oh dear, the head mage said smoothly. Would he be especially bothered by this? After all, Mr. Roseheart himself did that very same thing to obtain his own seat of house warden, a week after orientation. A week? Ace and Deuce gasped, reeling. House warden in a week, Ace repeated as he shook his head slowly. That jerk. So that's why he swaggers around like the king of the castle. I'm not sure I really understand, Yuya interjected. Isn't that kind of amazing? Yeah, he holds the record for the second place in the centuries-long history of Night Raven College. Trey shrugged. Like it's no big deal that he has... That means, what that also implies, though, is that someone became house warden less than a week into their freshman year. That's wild. That's wild. I don't know if it counts as Oh yeah, I guess so. If Malleus, yeah, probably Mal. They probably gave Mal the house warden position on day one. That's fair. That's fair enough. Fair enough, fair enough. Fair enough. Bye. Riddle has his regrets there, though. Says he should have laid down the glove on his first day and taken number 1. Interesting. So it wasn't day 1. It must have been on day 2 or day 3. But nonetheless, it was probably Malleus. Probably. The nerve of this guy, Ace muttered, and Yuya reflexively nodded. Apparently, elections were for the week, and Riddle had won his seat of house warden in a way that made people coo in admiration. Of course, that was how they would do it at Night Raven College. The right to challenge a house warden is bestowed upon all students when enrolling at the academy. Naturally, this means you all as well. The head mage looked at Ace. So what do you say, Mr. Trapola? Yuya didn't have to hear his response to know that Ace, or what Ace would say. Yes! Ace cried out excitedly. Oh, sorry. Not just yes, but yes! It is literally YASSSS. That's fantastic. Ace cried out excitedly, and he grinned audaciously like the challenger he was. I'll give him a run for his money, and then I'll be house warden and show him a thing or two. And plus, if I make house warden now, I'll beat his record of a week, yeah? I can... Wait, I forgot about the timeline. I forgot that this was like day 3 or day 4. This all happens before before a week. This literally happens within a week. That is wild. I'll beat his record of a week, yeah? I can practically see him foaming at the mouth. I'll do it too, Deuce said as he clenched his hands into fists. Ah, Trey sighed, looking up at the sky. You gotta be kidding me, even you, Deuce? Please don't try to stop me, Clover, Deuce told him. I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's never been my nature to begrudgingly follow orders when I'm unhappy with the team leader, and every man's gotta make a grab for glory at least once in his lifetime. There he is, the little delinquent, Ace grinned in high spirits. Me, Grim waved a hand in the air. I'll do it too. I'll mess that little grouch up real bad and show everyone the magical genius of the almighty Grim. I'm afraid not, Grim, the head mage cut off his happy declaration. You cannot challenge a house warden of a dorm to which you do not belong. Ah, but how am I supposed to get this buzzkill collar off? I can't sit around twiddling my thumbs and wait for it to fall off on its own. Relax, Ace waved a nonchalant hand. Once I'm house warden, I'll order Riddle to take it off. Easy peasy. You're already bossing him around, Yuya sighed. His spirit sank at the thought of another fight. If Ace hadn't just told him he didn't have to force himself to stand up in a fight, and that it was okay for him to do what he wanted, he would have felt battered in this moment. Why did these fights keep happening? It had only been a few days since he started school there. Don't worry, Ace told him. You can just sit back and watch you. To be honest, it's hard to imagine we can beat the house warden with a straightforward magic, Deuce said. A solid left hook, on the other hand. Nice! Ace's face lit up. It feels so good to punch his smarmy little face right in the kisser. Oh, Head Mage Crowley said. I should mention that any attacks other than those of a magical nature are prohibited in the duel. Huh? Ace and Deuce stared at him blankly. Obviously, Trey rolled his eyes. What do you guys even think the House Warden is? We're talking about the famed Night Raven College here. Mr. Clover is quite right. This is not about personal vendettas. This is a formal contest for the seat of House Warden at an arcane academy. Naturally, you shall complete on magical power. I will stand as witness to ensure that the duel is carried out under fair conditions. Please do not stand tall and do battle using only your own magic. Oh no, please do stand tall and do battle using only your own magic. The head mage said. Ace and Deuce looked at each other, considering the news. Riddle, the guy who had learned his signature spell at the age of 10, who was always top in his class, who had become House Warden a mere week after he started school. The boy no one could disobey. They were supposed to have a contest of magic with him? Even the most generous outlook, it was easy to see that this would be an uphill fight. One other thing, Crowley held up a finger. I forgot to mention the most important part. Yeah, what now? Ace asked with an edge of desperation. Whatever. His thought came through loud and clear. In sharp contrast to Ace's attitude, the head mage looked almost shockingly serious. Please take care that you do not overuse your magic. The air around them immediately grew heavier. Oh, Ace straightened up slowly. You're talking about Blot, right? Trey and Deuce looked equally grave. Yuya understood that whatever they were talking about was important, but he had no idea what was going on. What was Blot? Why did everyone have that same look on their faces? What happened when you overused your magic? You wouldn't know about this, would you? Allow me to explain. I am nothing if not benevolent. The head mage said as he sat them all down on the benches again and cleared his throat, taking his place before them, as if he were about to start a lecture. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at them professorially. Blot is something akin to a waste material created when magic is used. You said you have automotives in your world as well, yes? An automotive consumes fuel to run, and at the same time it emits exhaust gas. In a similar fashion, spells consume magic to manifest and discharge Blot. You might visualize it like that. It's exhaust gas? Yuya murmured. Magic still seemed like a fantastical dream to him, so exhaust gas felt much too ordinary, too workaday. It made him imagine something harmful to both the human body and the natural world. The head mage paced back and forth before them. A great deal of research on the nature of Blot has been conducted since the start of recorded history, and yet it is still a substance of many mysteries. There is one thing that we know for certain, however. He stopped neatly in front of Yuya. Blot is extremely poisonous. It is dangerous for a mage's body and soul. Something that scary exists? Grim cried in surprise, which surprised Yuya. He was impressed that Grim had made it this far into life with his hair-trigger use of magic without knowing this fact. Ace and the others also shivered. You didn't know about Blot? It's like the most basics of basics, man. Ace said. Ever since I was a kid, my parents have been like a broken record. Don't go fooling with magic. You'll build up Blot. Why do you think we were given magical pens when you start school here? Crowley said. Oh, I guess it's not a pen for you, Grim, but a pendant. Nevertheless, the fact remains. Pendant? Grim looked down. A pale purple mage stone hung undauntedly, below the oversized and obvious collar Riddle had saddled him with. That mage stone bears the burden of the mage's blot, the head mage informed him. Huh. Grim stroked the purple gem, pleased. All clear, then. No, far from it, Crowley warned, his voice suddenly low and cold. There is a limit to how much any mage stone can bear. You can reduce blot through sufficient rest. If you neglect to do so and continue to use magic, however, blot spreads like an ink stain until the mage stone turns jet black. Once that happens, blot will build up inside the mage's body, until it eventually overflows. The assembled students swallowed hard. This you must avoid at all costs. The very lives of the mage and the people in the vicinity are in danger in such a situation. Magic was not a panacea. Now, after all this time, Yuya realized that this saying was literally true. He should have had his doubts the moment he learned there was such a thing as an arcane academy. If magic was something that just anyone could control, then they wouldn't need schools for it. Do you understand how very dangerous it is to overuse magic? Crowley asked, to drive the point home. Yes, Yuya nodded firmly. Ace, Deuce, Grim, and even the third-year Trey nodded. Serious looks on their face. I just realized the subtitles stopped, and now they're back. Fantastic. Well, with the amount of magic Mr. Tripola and Mr. Spade have, I do think we needn't be particularly concerned about this possibility, Crowley checked that they were all paying attention, and then broke out into a smile. The amount of magic varies widely depending on the mage, but almost every individual has the same amount of blot tolerance. Which is why the more powerful the mage, the more careful they must be when using that power. On that point, mages at your level are not likely to generate a significant blot even if you called upon your magic until the point of exhaustion. Oh, Crowley, ye of little faith. Oh, I love how inaccurate the subtitles can be. Oh, wow. Fantastic. So then, why even mention it at all? Ace cried. Ah! Safety first, the head mage gave them a sunny thumbs up. In the worst case scenario, if such a thing were to happen on campus, and specifically during an official duel, observers would naturally call into question my guidance and leadership as head mage. You must please take all due caution. Crowley, you could at least pretend to care. Oh my gosh. All right. Are you really going to fight Riddle? Yuya asked Ace and Deuce worriedly. Now that he knew that the scary part of having magic, he didn't want them to use it so casually. But they had both made up their minds. Yep, Ace nodded. Like, I'm gonna run and hide now. Yeah, strike while the iron's hot and all that. We'll fight tomorrow to beat the Housewarden's record too. No objections, right? An audacious grin spread across Deuce's face. No mercy just because we're up against the Housewarden. I'm taking the throne. Understood, but I shall prepare and file the paperwork, so I will excuse myself for now. Gentlemen, I wish you a pleasant duel tomorrow, in full observation of the rules, Crowley said as he swept away. Once the head mage was gone, anxiety crept into Yuya. Are you sure? He asked again. You know, I may not be the world's greatest mage, Ace confessed, but dropping out now is not on the table. I'll figure something out. Yeah, Deuce agreed. Only at a time like this were Ace and Deuce of the same opinion, so Yuya swallowed his objections. He was concerned about this blot, but the head mage had also said they were probably safe, so maybe things would be okay. He forced himself to push his worries aside. He hadn't been able to come up with any other way to resolve this mess, so he had no right to stop them to begin with. My head's on the line here too, Grim told them. Don't mess this up. Of course, Ace said, flashing him a grin. When I'm house warden, I'm gonna make Riddle fess up to being wrong. I'll make him apologize too, and no one in the dorm is gonna have to live by any nonsense rules ever again. You guys, Trey sighed, exasperated. Maybe he hadn't fully digested the whole duel situation yet. Standing before his upperclassmen, Ace announced mercilessly, Go back to the dorm and tell him to get ready, 'cause Ace is coming. Upon their arrival back at Ramshackle Dorm that night, the ghost stared at the students with wide eyes. After Ace and Deuce had left that morning with a thank you for the kind hospitality, the ghosts had never imagined they would be returning in the evening. Who could have thunk your friends be coming over again today, a ghost said. I mean, we're all thrilled and everything, but you sure you don't need to get back to your own dorm, said another. Well, there's a, situation there. Yuya gave them a quick rundown and the ghosts began to laugh loudly. Their laughter was so intense that Yuya worried they might start bouncing around the room. Ah, perfect, this here's why I can never give up being a ghost at Night Raven College, said the first ghost. What? Ace demanded. He frowned in a half-pout. You making fun of us? Not a chance. We're just really feeling how wonderful youth is, the second ghost told him, panting for breath. It was weird that they got short of breath when they laughed too hard, even though they were ghosts. Or maybe it was simply that they were imitating the things they'd done back when they were alive. As they verbally sparred with Ace, the ghost looked a bit jealous. The first ghost continued, In your short human lives, there's only, like, a quick second when you can do this stuff. Jumping into the ring with someone like it's life or death. Once you're grown up, it's all over. And there's no chance of anything like that happening when you're dead, of course. Only when you're kids can you throw around your whole self into something. 'Cause you got no past, only a future. Probably won't even make there a connection while you're at Night Raven College, though. Hee hee hee. We'll pack lunches and come watch tomorrow, said the third ghost. You don't have to. It's not a show, Deuce said, glaring at them. He probably didn't love being called a kid. The ghosts winced. We'll go get some sheets, they said, fading from view. Just like the night before, they all made camp in Yuya's room and quickly turned out the lights. After the long day, they were a little fatigued, and they also wanted to get to bed early in preparation for the big fight the next day. Yuya laid in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Ace and Deuce seemed to be having the same problem. He could hear them tossing and turning. He just had too many concerns racing through his brain to give himself so easy over to sleep. Trey looked pretty dark, huh? Yuya said quietly. He recalled the upperclassman returning to Heartslabyul, his slumped back receding from view as he headed towards the Hall of Mirrors alone. Yuya wondered how he was doing now. Wait, I just glanced over at the subtitles. Has it been saying that Yuya's name is Yu-Gi-Oh this entire time? Oh no! The crossover we didn't expect. Oh, that's delightful. That really... Oh, it has said Yuya once or twice? Okay. Okay, that's interesting. It took me out of it for a little bit. But yeah, I guess they are kind of similar enough. I can't fault it too much. Oh, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, the MC's name was Yuya? Interesting, interesting. Oh, there it goes. It said Yuya that time. Alright. Anyway, where the heck was I before that happened and I got all sidetracked? Trey looked pretty dark, huh? Yuya said quietly. He recalled the upperclassman returning to Heartslabyul, his slumped back receding from view as he headed towards the Hall of Mirrors alone. Yuya wondered how he was doing now. It's 'cause you were so harsh, Ace, Deuce accused. Whatever, Ace snorted. I only told him the truth. But after hearing Clover talk, I kinda get why Housewarden Rosehearts is like that, Deuce mused. I mean, I don't get it? Which is exactly why it feels like, oh, maybe that's it. Studying every day, always getting top marks, living up to the impossible expectations. I've got zero experience there. Nah, all that doesn't matter. Like, throwing himself into things the way he does is just weird out of the gate. Whatever his reasons, it's just stupid. Ace let out a short guffaw. I guess the Malleus Draconia goes to Night Raven. He's Housewarden of Deosomnia, right? Maybe that's part of it. Malleus Draconia. You felt like he heard that name somewhere before. Is he famous? He asked. You don't know him? Oh, wait, why would you? Ace laughed. Malleus Draconia. He's a famous mage. He's fairy folk, and I heard he's a prince of someplace. Got some serious magic guns. One of the top 5 mages in the whole world. Oh, the guy they were talking about at the orientation. Yes, the Deosomnia Vice Housewarden had mentioned Malleus at orientation, and the other students had also whispered rumors about him. Even though it had only been a few days, it felt like ancient history. Next to Yuya, Grim wrinkled his nose. Is he really such a hot shot? I'm not sure the whole thing where he gets more attention than me. Hey, I'll tell you right now, don't even try it with Malleus Draconia, Ace warned him. He could turn you into dust. Yeah, Deuce agreed. I've heard about Draconia. He always has a bunch of people with him as guards, and he almost never shows himself in public. Guards? These Deosomnia guys, man. You can't even get close to them. Yuya could almost hear Ace rolling his eyes. I heard that's the dorm with all the guys who are like magic geniuses. The ones in our class are all prim and proper too. They've got this VIP air. You'd be too scared to say a word to them. It's not just that, Deuce said. Draconia came to Heartslabyul once on some errand or something, and all the roses in the in the maze, they just iced over and died. Oh no! Oh, the subs again. Oh, they're getting rather naughty. Let me refresh them. All right. Are you gonna work now? Now that they're refreshed, are you gonna work, Mr. Subtitle? Mr. Subtitles, come back. But yeah, he must have been upset. Maybe he was supposed... I wonder if he went there to do something. And then Riddle was like, oh yeah, that happened 5 days ago. Yeah, the subtitles are trying. They're trying. I don't know how hard they're trying, but they're trying. He must have been like... It must have been like a party or something, and he was like, oh, I'm not invited to your unbirthday party. Oh, how sad. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, man. All right, let me refresh the page and see if that helps for these subtitles. They do so well for so long, and then they just stop working. There we go. And I don't know why. Oh, yeah, it could have been about the ceremony, too. It could have been about the ceremony. Yeah. Yeah. Could have been about anything, I think. Unfortunately for him. But anyways. In the back of his mind, Yuya saw the Heartslabyul maze, that tremendous path of roses spreading out endlessly under the blue sky. What kind of powerful and terrifying mage had he used to make magic had he used to make all of them wither? Grim shivered next to him. Yikes, Ace cried. That's totally a threat. Like, you guys are next. Well, I didn't see it myself, so I don't know all the details, but you think there's some connection between Draconia being here and Housewarden Rosehearts being so intense about everything? Deuce asked. Well, the current Housewardens are all on the same level as that monster dude, right? Ace replied. People are probably watching them no matter where they go, and that's gotta put you on edge in a real way. He seems like the show-off type. I don't know, Deuce said. There's that whole thing about how he's obeyed the rules ever since way before he started school here. I think maybe Housewarden Rosehearts would still been super strict even without the competition of the other house wardens. Well then, we're screwed, Ace groaned. As he listened to the two of them talking, Yuya felt anxiety fill his heart. Heartslabyl's Riddle, Savannah Claw's Leona. The two house wardens he'd met so far had a presence that instantly made him stand up straighter the moment he set eyes on them. Diasomnia's Malleus was no doubt the same. These were people with the power and personality to keep the wild students of Nightraven College in line. There were only 7 of them in the whole school, and Ace and Deuce were going to fight one. Careful not to get hurt tomorrow, okay? Yuya said, his voice strained. You bet, Ace and Deuce replied, their tone light. It was exactly the response he'd expected, but he still could not give them that warning. That reminds me, Deuce said. We still haven't decided who's gonna fight the house warden first. Oh, you can go first, Ace replied immediately. You sure? I figured you'd be all, I said I was fighting him first, so obviously I have the right to go first. Nah, I figure I'll get you to wear him down first. Getting in there afterward is the smart thing to do. What? Are you trying to say I'm gonna lose? Ace and Deuce continued bickering the same way they had the night before. But no matter how animated and eager they were, Yuya's anxiety remained a heavy ball of lead at the bottom of his stomach. Grim opened his mouth and yawned. Yuya closed his eyes in an attempt to hurry himself to sleep. Another strange dream? On the first page, we have the Queen of Hearts sitting at her lovely courtside seat, with Alice sitting in the late defendant's box? Alice is in one of the, is in the little box, talking to the Queen. It's the courtroom scene from Alice in Wonderland. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about. Alice, and as for you, Your Majesty indeed. Why, you're not even a queen. You're just a pompous, bad-tempered old tyrant. Queen of Hearts. What were you saying, my dear? Cheshire Cat. Well, she simply said that you're a pompous, bad-tempered old tyrant. On the next page, we have all of the card soldiers descending upon Alice in the box. Queen of Hearts. Off with her head. Cards. Whoa. King of Hearts. You heard what Her Majesty said. Off with her head. Chapter 14. When Yuya woke up, he was suffocating. Something was blocking his nose. He lifted his head to find that it was just Grim's leg. He could hear Ace's and Deuce's voices from far away. It seemed they were talking to the ghosts. We got bread and nice meaty soup from the chef ghost in the cafeteria. You're not going to be able to produce any power on an empty stomach. You best eat here before you go, a ghost said. Oh, thoughtful, thanks, Ace replied. Sure thing. Chef's looking forward to the duels today, too. Hey, I said it's not a show. Yuya heard a loud creak. It was the sound of the lounge door opening. Either Ace or Deuce was no doubt coming to wake him up. And Grim up. Sitting up, Yuya shook his hazy head. He felt like he'd had nothing but weird dreams since coming to this world. Previously, he had felt sure he'd seen that intense woman somewhere before, but today he finally realized who she was. She was one of the Great Seven, the Queen of Hearts. Maybe he was dreaming of her because her legend had made a real impression on him, but the Queen of Hearts had supposedly been an excellent queen who had led her people with law and order, albeit strictly. Yet the woman who appeared in his dreams was all very different from the one in the tale, Ace had told him. Plus, the story advanced like he was watching a movie, and as such he couldn't interact with anything. He had only been able to observe from the sidelines, even as he wondered why no one would stop the queen, which stirred up feelings of frustration in him. Perhaps his dream resembled the situation they were in now. That made sense. Was that why he was having these weird dreams? As he awoke further, the pieces continued to come together for him. and Yuya was able to reassure himself that there was nothing strange about his dreams. He reflected on the scene that was already starting to fade from his memory. A queen crazed with rage demanding the head of a little girl, and the cards trying to obey her. Countless cards scattered all over the place. What exactly were they thinking as they followed the queen's orders? AC and Ducey are challenging Riddle for the housewarden seat. Cater cried as he came flying at Trey in the garden at Heartslabyul, the chosen venue for the duel. All the color had drained from his face. Trey had been busy preparing for the event, but now he hung his head guiltily. Please tell me this is a joke. Cater grabbed his shoulders. I mean, a duel? Where did that come from? Sorry, I tried to stop them, but... Deuce trail. Oh, okay, so we have another typo. Because there's no reason that Deuce would be saying that he tried to stop them. That's wild. Interesting. Anyway. Yeah, Trey, exactly. Yeah, wait, yeah, Trey. Trey just keeps turning into everyone else. Oh, yeah, Cater was technically there because of the typo, so I don't know what he's so, he's so frightened about. Sorry, I tried to stop them, but Trey trailed off. Perhaps realizing it was pointless for him to wait for him to continue, Cater sighed. When Trey timidly lifted his face, there was no anger or sadness on Cater's, only simple exasperation. Honestly, he said, those two are so reckless. Trey thought that Cater was exactly right. He had a very hard time believing either Ace or Deuce was in his right mind, challenging the Riddle. Despite the widespread dissatisfaction with Riddle within the dorm, no one had stepped forward to challenge him since he'd taken on the position of housewarden because Riddle possessed overwhelming power. And the power that specifically discouraged any challengers was his signature spell. Off with your head sealed the magic of its target, and in a battle where only magical attacks were permitted, once that spell was cast, it was all over. His opponent was helpless. No one could hope to unseat Riddle as long as that spell was in play. I just hope this doesn't make everything worse, Cater murmured, watching as Riddle made his grand entrance. He had no intention of rebuking Riddle either. He liked his head where it was on his shoulders. Yeah, Trey said in a voice that only Cater could hear. The fragrance of roses was almost suffocating. Perhaps it was due to the enthusiasm of the people gathered in the garden. The students of Heartslabyul pressed up against each other, eager gazes trained to a single spot. They were all staring at Ace and Deuce, who stood in their dorm uniforms. Facing them was Riddle, his long cape fluttering in the breeze and the crown on his head glittering. We are about to commence 2 challenges for the housewarden position at Heartslabyul dorm, the head mage announced. The first challenger is Ace Trapola, and the second is Deuce Spade. Accepting their challenge is the current housewarden, Riddle Rosehearts. The students in the garden began to laugh. Challenging housewarden Rosehearts? Man, these guys are delusional, said one student. Total idiots. In 5 seconds, their heads will be gone and it'll all be over, a second student bet. Housewarden, take them out! Crowd yet more students. Jeers flew from the crowd, the students' mouths twisted up in sneers. It was more than clear from the way they laughed at Ace and Deuce that they cursed them as stupid first years, fully expecting them to be destroyed. These guys have already given up, Yuya thought, clenching his icy hands. They wanted to see Ace and Deuce bowed in misery, so they could reassure themselves that this would never be happening to them. They wanted to make sure the housewarden's power and embrace their own happiness. This twisted desire ran rampant through the students of Heartslabyul. These students naturally avoided Yuya and Grim in the center of the maelstrom, creating a small opening around them in the jostling crowd. Aw, so we're sitting on the bleachers and everyone is avoiding us. We're quite literally being singled out. Yuya scanned the area and met the eyes of Trey, who shrugged. This is a total away game, Yuya murmured, and Grim stared up at him blankly. Away game? What's that? Grim asked. It means fighting in a disadvantageous place with no allies. Ha! Grim nodded slightly, and then his attention shifted. Don't whiff this, Ace. Deuce, you gotta hurry up and get this collar off of me. Now then, Crowley said as he turned to Riddle, solemnly, in accordance with the duel's rules, please remove the magic stealing collars, as they would provide an unfair disadvantage. Yes, sir. Nodding obediently, Riddle flicked his hand in the air. And with that, the shackles that had tortured Ace and Deuce were removed. Ah, finally that stupid thing is gone, Ace said as he rubbed his neck. He had had a hard time sleeping again the previous night, and there was no doubt that the last few days had been rough on him. Besides him, Deuce also let out a sigh of relief. He looked over his surroundings intently as if concerned for once about having eyes on him. Yuya was surprised he would be so troubled by people staring at him. Either earlier that morning, after the ghosts had brought them breakfast and Deuce was stuffing food into his mouth, he had expressed relief that they didn't have to go to the cafeteria. While they ate, he had talked Yuya's ear off about how humiliating it was for a mage to be seen in chains. Ace and Deuce were no doubt fired up and ready to vindicate themselves. Enjoy your moment of freedom. The collars will be back on soon enough, Riddle said as he turned cold eyes on them. I could hardly believe it when I heard you two intended to duel me. Is this a joke? Do I look like I'm joking? Ace challenged. I'd never propose a duel as a joke, Deuce said firmly. Humph, have it your way then. Let us get this over with, Riddle said, crossing his arms. Cater waved a hand from the crowd behind them and called out, Riddle, what do you want to do about today's afternoon tea? Cater, wait. Cater, don't stall. Cater. What do I want to do? A foolish question, Riddle told him. I take my tea every day at 4 p.m. sharp. I shall have tea as usual. But it's just that it's past 3:30. Smiling, Cater held up his phone. See? A diamond symbol character just like the one on his phone cover pointed at a digital clock on the screen. What exactly was that smile for? Unlike the other dorm students, Cater was smiling in the same way as when you'd first met him, which made it all the more curious. Was he warning Ace and Deuce that this was their last chance to back down? Was he asking Riddle to call the whole thing off? He couldn't have actually been excited about the fight. This was Cater's way of trying to stop the duel. The three fighters ignored his good humor and glared at each other. And you fear I will be late? Riddle asked. I'll be done with these two quickly enough. Let's end this promptly. Rather than facing my opponents in succession, I will take both on at once. You really doing this, huh? Cater asked. Okay, guess we could leave you an excuse for when you wipe the floor with you. What? Oh. Guess we could leave you an excuse for when we wipe the floor with you, Ace said, and glanced at Yuya out of the corner of his eye. If it was 2 against 1, then they could join forces like they had in the Enchanted Mine. There's another typo on this page. It says Enchanted Mind instead of Enchanted Mine, which is kind of ridiculous and funny. Are we in Persona 5 all of a sudden? Are we in someone's mind palace? Anyway, Deuce would first stop Riddle in his tracks, which would allow them to cut off access to that signature spell of his. Then they could figure out the rest of it. This was one of the plans they'd come up with at Ramshackle Dorm. When Ace and Deuce had started fighting about who would fight when, Yuya had eventually suggested a strategy meeting. He had also been the one to convince them that they didn't have a chance of winning unless they worked together. As a result, he was now just as much a part of this duel as they were. The head mage brandished a small mirror, and a cheer went up from the crowd. The strange exultation hanging in the air was frightening, and Yuya wanted to run away immediately. Now, the duel would begin. I will throw this mirror to the ground. When it shatters, that is your signal to begin. Are you ready? Yes? Crowley asked, making eye contact with the combatants. The mirror reflected the grim faces of Ace and Deuce, then Riddle's smirk, and the next, the sky. Yuya clasped his hands, weaving his fingers together. He squeezed so hard that his nails bit into the backs of his hands. Ready? The head mage flicked his wrist, and the mirror danced up into the air. Then it hit the ground and shattered into countless tiny pieces. The flying fragments each caught the light of the sun. Glimmering bits danced through space, and these lights fell to the ground once more. A voice cried out, "Off with your head!" They didn't even get the chance to blink. It all happened in the most fleeting of moments. Ace and Deuce held up their magical pens, but before they could cast their spells, collars snapped shut around their necks. "That's the end of that, then," Riddle announced coldly, and Yuya felt real terror at the sight of him. To think that he was actually this overwhelming. Was he really this powerful? This small boy before his eyes, only a year older than he was? Ace and Deuce also reached hesitant fingers up to their necks, as though they couldn't believe what just happened. "For real? I didn't even have time to finish my spell," Ace cried. He shut us down like it was nothing," Deuce groaned, staggering back. "Yeah, they didn't stand a chance," Grim said, stunned. "Impressive," the head mage said admirably from where he was watching over the duel near Yuya and Grim. "Visualization is the key to spellcasting. The better you are at accurately visualizing your magic's effects, the stronger and more precise it will be. It would appear that Mr. Roseheart's power of imagination have grown stronger since last year's duel. Such a thing does not happen overnight. It's quite obvious how much effort he puts into training day in and day out." "Hey, you jerk," Ace snarled. "What are you happy for? Whose side are you on anyway?" "I am on no one's side," Crowley sniffed indignantly. "I am the head mage. I referee with impartiality, but it does seem as though the contest has been decided." When Yuya looked up with a gasp, Riddle was holding his golden scepter out, pointing it at Ace and Deuce. They took one step toward him, then another back, then stumbled and fell. Riddle looked down at them and chuckled. "You didn't even last 5 seconds. That was all you had. And still, you thought to challenge me. You must be utterly humiliated." Now that Ace and Deuce could not use magic, Riddle's victory was essentially a done deal. Even if the pair didn't accept their defeat, the moment Riddle insisted on it, the duel would end. But the anger in Riddle's eyes continued to burn undiminished. In fact, it had grown stronger than it had been before the duel. The excitement of the battle and the joy of victory became fuel and set fire to Riddle's cruel desire to torture the pair. "And now admit it before everyone here," he demanded. "You were both wrong. If you weep and apologize and accept your punishment like good little boys, I may be inclined to forgive you." "Not a chance," Ace snarled. "Losers must submit to their defeat," Riddle glared at him. "You are weak. You have no other choice. And yet you still presume to kick and scream? Fruitless. How utterly foolish. A man who cannot follow rules is a man who cannot achieve anything. It's just as Mother said," he murmured absently. "You're wrong," Deuce exclaimed, leaping to his feet. "We agree that rules should be followed, but isn't that because they're necessary to make sure people do the right thing? Forcing others to follow nonsensical rules is tyranny." Seeing his brave, dazzling, and proud form, Yuya reflexively covered his face with his hands. He didn't need to look to know that Riddle would be incandescent with rage. "If you break the rules, you will be punished," Riddle declared. "And in this dorm, I am the house warden. I am the strongest. I am the rules. Therefore, those who cannot abide by my decisions deserve not the heads they use to complain. You must understand this. Isn't that right, everyone?" "Yes, house warden." Voices came from students all around the garden. Looking through the gap in his fingers, Yuya watched Riddle brandish his scepter and urge on the students. At his feet, Ace clutched the grass, and Deuce was yelling something. Like a chorus, the other students called out, "We salute you, House Lord and Riddle." The intense pressure of the power emanating from the house warden tore at Ace and Deuce. The uniformity of the chorus was, in a certain sense, crueler than magic. The uniformity of the chorus was, in a certain sense, crueler magic than anything unleashed during the duel. "We salute you, House Warden Riddle," they continued to chorus. No one could stop them. Trey and Cater would no doubt maintain their quiet observation to the end, in which case, until Ace and Deuce admitted that they had lost, or maybe even after they yielded, this violence would continue. On and on and on into the future. This absurd fight would never end. When Yuya lowered the hands that had been pressed to his face, he could see Grim punching the air near his waist. He had no doubt been fighting mad this whole time. Well, Yuya had wrestled with his own feelings, and this free-spirited, steadfast monster gave him the final push he needed. On the next page, we have Riddle brandishing his scepter and standing above both Ace and Deuce on the ground, as Ace and Deuce clutch their collars and look up at Riddle with frustration, although Ace is looking a little more shocked. The story continues. Perhaps noticing something different in Yuya's attitude, Grim stopped moving, a dubious look crossing his face. You? Where are you going? Hey! Yuya watched his own feet take one step after another like he was in a dream. Please stop, he said. You? He parted the crowd of students and walked to the front where Ace and Deuce's eyes flew open so wide their eyeballs nearly fell out. Yuya himself couldn't believe what he was doing either, so Ace and Deuce had likely never in their wildest dreams expected to see Yuya talk back to Riddle. Riddle's eyes shone. Now that he had punished Ace and Deuce, he seemed convinced that there wasn't a person in the world who would dare disobey him now. He asked, "Do you intend to play the ally for these two fools? All of you losers, you've gotten quite friendly, But since you're a student at this academy, it would be better for your sake if you paid me the respect I am due." A breeze caressed his cheek. The golden scepter cut through the air and shone sharply in the evening sun. "You understand, yes?" "I am correct," Riddle commanded. "I'm not trying to be anyone's ally," Yuya said, his voice hoarse with nerves. With an annoyed air, Riddle cupped his small ear pointedly towards Yuya. Yuya swallowed hard and to wet his throat. "Sorry, but I don't care who's right. I really just want all the fighting to stop." Was it so simple as that? This was somehow anticlimactic. Was it actually that basic? He didn't hate people criticizing him, he hated the fighting itself? Although at first glance they seemed the same, there was a big difference between the two. But he'd gotten so far in his own head that at some point he'd stopped knowing that. He didn't have Ace's strength, Deuce's honesty, or Riddle's diligence, so he couldn't even begin to say who was right here. Anyway, he didn't think he was the person to do that. He finally understood now. His desire to be Ace's ally was probably overreaching. Even just doing what he wanted to do, like Ace said he should, was still more than he could manage. As for loftier goals, well, it was better not to think about things that were beyond his reach. He would do what he wanted to do. He would say exactly what he wanted to say. "The contest's already been decided," he said, closing his eyes to shut out everything else. "In your favor, Riddle. So I think there's no point in any more fighting." When he opened his eyes, Riddle looked shocked to his very core. "Does this look like a fight to you?" His stunned expression began to color with anger again, and when next he spoke, half spitting the words out, his tone remained somehow still elegant. "Absurd! This is punishment. It is the natural recompense for those who do not obey the rules. If there was no penalties, no one would follow the rules. I have to wonder what sort of pitiful education left you unable to comprehend this simple a concept. This world, or what have you that you're from, must have been quite vulgar indeed." At some point, Ace and Deuce had come to Yuya's side, and now they cried out on his behalf. "What did you say?" Riddle turned his contemptuous gaze on them. "And as for you two, clearly you were born to parents with no great magical capability, and as a result, you lack even the basic education necessary to attend a school such as this. In truth, I pity you." All the color drained from Deuce's face, and he raised his fist before him, growling, "You little—" "Stop!" Yuya exclaimed as he pushed down Deuce's arm with both hands. He knew that Deuce had come to Night Raven College for the sake of his mother, so this was an unforgivable insult. But If Deuce gave himself over to anger, then any fair argument he might have had would become simple violence. And if he attacked Riddle under the watchful eyes of the head mage, not only would he not be able to go back to the dorm, but he might end up getting expelled from the school itself. Yuya was certain Deuce would regret that. If you lay a finger on him, Yuya was trying to reason with him when he saw something shoot by at top speed out of the corner of his eye. What do we think that was, chat? What do we think? What do we think was flying by in the corner of his eye? Cast your votes now. I wonder who's taking this moment as an opportunity to do something. You shut your spoiled little mouth, Ace roared angrily. At the same time, Riddle fell to the ground. Huh? Yuya gasped. Ace panted heavily while at his feet. Riddle pressed a hand to his cheek. His large eyes grew even wider, almost seeming to fall out of his head. The look on his face was stunned and somehow childlike. Beneath his hand, the pale peach of his cheek grew redder and redder. Yuya and Deuce both stared, their jaws dropping open in shock. The rest of the assembled student body were doing the same. Had they actually seen what they thought they had? Or was this a dream? Meow! Grimm's laughter echoed through the silent garden as he cockily strolled over to Ace. Bam! Right across the face. The first student from the crowd to come back to himself pointed at Ace and shrieked, He punched the house warden! Ace, you! Deuce grabbed Ace's shoulders as the garden erupted around them. I'm fine, Ace said, brushing his hands off. He glared at Riddle as if the chaos and Deuce's confusion had nothing to do with him. That's all I can take. Forget Riddle. Forget the duel. I'm done. Riddle! Trey and Cater cried as they raced over to him. Yuya could also see the head mage heading their way. As for Riddle, his hand was still pressed to his cheek in blank amazement. How? You punched me? He asked with a trembling voice laden with disbelief. Stop yammering about parents already. Kids aren't trophies for their parents to flaunt, and the way a kid turns out doesn't determine the value of their parents. That's not where the problem is. Ace pointed at Riddle and shouted, I totally get it now. It's not your parents' fault you became a tyrant or anyone else's. You've been here for a year and haven't even made one friend who will tell you when you're out of line. And that's on you. Me? Riddle's eyes wavered. What are you talking about? Fine, so you grew up with the relentless helicopter mom who totally did not make it fun. But is that all you are? Just an extension of your mom? My mom? How do you know? Riddle gasped. Trey! He had no doubt thought he had been betrayed by an old friend. What have you been telling him about me? You can't possibly be rejecting Mother and her teachings. No, that's not it, Riddle. Trey pleaded as Riddle yanked him forward by his lapels. I just thought maybe if they could understand you, then... And there you go again. It's always someone else's fault with you. Huh, Ace sneered at Riddle. You talk like you're holier than thou, but you can't even think for yourself? You call yourself a house warden? The Red Sovereign? You're just a big baby who's good at magic. Baby? Did you call me a baby? Riddle staggered to his feet as if pulled by an invisible thread and glared at Ace. Which does not make sense if he was pulling Trey's lapels. Because why would he be pulling Trey's lapels from the ground? But okay. How dare you? You don't know anything. You don't know the first thing about me. Nope, sure don't. How could I? Ace demanded. I mean, have you ever let anyone know you? That's how you make friends, dude. But you don't bother to put in the work. You just expect everyone to wait on you hand and foot. You're nothing but a spoiled brat. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Riddle stomped his foot against the ground in frustration, his face beet red. His usual refined demeanor was suddenly nowhere to be seen. He looked exactly like what Ace had called him, the very picture of an infant who hadn't yet learned to speak. "He's scaring me," Grissom whispered, and Deuce nodded. It was absurd that Riddle could kick and flail his small body in a temper tantrum. It made them keenly aware of the dangerous fact that Riddle knew no other way of doing things. The students in the crowd were whispering to each other as they watched Riddle lose his composure. This was the Red Sovereign they had so feared, the tyrant with magical powers so absolute they all bowed before him. That authority was gone now. The beautiful cloak was covered in dirt, and the crown on his head listed heavily to one side. Was the ruler whom they cowered before nothing more than this boring, pathetic baby? "All of it was for your sakes. My mother was right, and that means I'm right too," Riddle shouted. This was quickly followed by a smugly pleasing crack. "Ugh!" Riddle scowled as something oozed onto his cheek. A vicious liquid wove through his hair and flowed downwards. "What is this? Blood?" He reached up, a hand up to his face, and Trey and the head mage both stared in surprise. At first, Yuya also wondered if it was blood, but what appeared on Riddle's glove, dripping from his fingers, was clear and thicker than blood. Riddle turned his head upwards, and a yellow lump slid down his eye. This melted away, becoming shapeless, and slid across his smooth cheek, dribbling down onto his jaw. Drops of yellow fell onto the grass. "Egg," Trey murmured. Yuya looked closely and noticed eggshell in Riddle's hair. The egg had been crushed, its contents scattered, dirtying the crown. "Who's housewarden now?" a voice shouted from somewhere in the garden. "Forcing your selfish rules on us?" "Yeah," someone else agreed. "We have to live in fear because of you." "The new kid's right. Who cares what you've been through? I'm sick of this." The hand in a crowd waved a magical pen, and another egg went flying towards Riddle. This time, Trey repelled it with a spell. "Stop it," he yelled. "What are you doing? This is your housewarden." "Calm down, guys," Cater called out to the students desperately, but the cork couldn't be put back in the bottle. All the resentment and anger that had been kept in check by the threat of Riddle erupted like a powder keg being lit. "You're no housewarden," a student yelled. "Go home, you baby," chanted another. A storm of jeers rose from the crowd. "Come now, I insist that you cease this behavior," the headmaid shouted, waving his hands above his head. "When I say stop, I mean stop. Can you not hear my voice?" There was a sound of another egg splattering across the green lawn. Someone stepped on it, which made a disgusting squelching sound. Curses, sneers, shouts. The garden was lawless in the afternoon sun. "This is awful," Yuya muttered to himself, and Deuce clicked his tongue in disapproval. Where were they when Riddle was taking our heads off? It was all, "We salute you, housewarden," then. "But Ace throws a punch and they revolt?" Deuce asked. With this many people clamoring, there was no way of knowing who had thrown the eggs. The anonymity the anonymity only fanned the violence. Yuya felt a shiver run up his spine, and Ace pursed his lips together unhappily. He had undoubtedly not intended for this to happen when he fought back against Riddle. And on the next page is a very concerned Riddle, staring in disbelief at his glove, which has egg on it, while there is also egg on his head, splattered. It's honestly a very scary drawing. The story continues. Yuya looked towards the housewarden. Trey and Cater were by his side, whispering urgently to him. Abruptly, Riddle doubled over and began shaking. Riddle clutched his stomach as he laughed. It's so funny. You're fed up? I'm the one who's fed up with all of you. He wiped the egg off his jaw with a thumb. No matter how strict I am, no matter how many heads I remove, you keep breaking the rules. All of you, you're nothing but selfish idiots. Riddle wasn't looking at anyone anymore. Eyes unfocused, lips twisting up, he brandished the scepter with the mage stone on top. Fine, if that's what you want. I'll pass judgment on all of you. Light flashed and cries rose. Students dropped to the ground, brown new collars around their necks. One boy was cut down by a streak of light as he turned and tried to run. Before their eyes, one student after another fell to Riddle's fetters. How do you like that, Riddle sneered. Now no one can do a thing to me. Do you see now? My strict adherence to the rules was clearly the correct path. Cease this improper behavior now, Mr. Rosehearts. I expect better from you. The head mage repelled the magic that came flying at Trey. What happened to the rules that you have always so respected? Riddle's spell was now attacking people indiscriminately. He watched the students running around in confusion, quite obviously enjoying himself. The words of the head mage were drowned out by the peals of laughter. He's lost the plot, Grim shouted as he climbed up Yuya's back to his shoulders to escape being kicked around in the chaos. This could get ugly fast. We gotta vamoose, like now. Nope, Ace said as he leapt out in front of Riddle. Hey man, snap out of it. When Riddle saw Ace, the smile vanished from his face. Crowley tried to stop him. Deuce and Yuya called out to him, but still, Ace did not retreat. Wow, way to totally prove me wrong there. I call you a baby and you immediately start throwing a temper tantrum, Ace taunted. Retract your comment immediately, Riddle demanded furiously, or I shall skewer you where you stand. No way, I ain't retracting squat. Ace didn't flinch, of course. He wasn't afraid of Riddle like the other students in the dorm, and he didn't pander to him like Trey and Cater. Even after having his head taken off multiple times, he still refused to go along with what he knew to be wrong. Which was exactly why he was so vexing to Riddle. Riddle shrieked, boiling with rage. The ground beneath his feet began to shake. At first, Yuya thought it was his own legs trembling in fear, but when he looked around, everyone else was also staring at their feet. The shaking increased and the earth rumbled and roared. Trey, Cater said with the color draining from his face. This is for real triple yikes, seriously. The ground began to crack as the roots of the rose bushes pulled free of the dirt. Clouds of dust followed the bushes up into the air, and the roots of an enormous rose bush undulated and twisted together, the tips sharpening like lances. All of them were aimed at Ace. Mighty roses, tear this brute to pieces, Riddle howled. No way, Ace! Deuce tried to run over to him, but the cracking ground blocked his way. Yuya reached out towards Ace, straining desperately, but he was much too far away to reach him. Ace, he cried. At the pointed roots of the rosebush surrounded him, Ace covered his face with his arms. Yuya was on the verge of squeezing his eyes shut when someone came running over to Ace from the opposite direction. Paint the roses, came a shout. The roar of angry earth quieted, replaced by a gentle fluttering. Yuya stared at Trey, who stood in front of Ace, who was crouched on the ground. Paper was scattering around them. Huh? I'm still alive? Ace picked up one of the palm-sized cards curiously. It was an utterly ordinary heartsuit. Is this a playing card? Why? The rose tree turned into playing cards. Deuce stared with wide eyes, and there was a clack from his neck. The lock on his collar had opened. Stunned, he pulled the collar off and it melted into air. The same thing happened to Ace, Grim, and all the other dorm students. Was that your paint the roses spell just now, Trey? Cater asked incredulously. And everyone's collars came off? How the? Huh? What is going on? I told you, my magic can overwrite characteristics for a short time. Trey paused for a breath. So I used it to make Riddle's magic into my magic. What? Cater cried. No way you can do that? That's some kind of loophole. The entire group was stunned into silence. But Riddle alone seemed to be unable to accept what was happening. Off with your head, he yelled. Off with your head, I said, off with your head, off! But the only thing he was accomplishing by waving his scepter was to scatter more cards on the ground. Why can I only produce cards? Riddle, you have to stop. Trey called out to him while still protecting Ace behind him. Can't you see how you look right now? You keep going like this and you'll end up more and more alone. Look around. Look at their faces. The overturned earth of the lawn, the cruelly scattered roses, the dorm students staring at him astonished. He was really going to take out that first year. He's completely out of control. The terror bleeding into their faces was uglier than the fear they had had before, and it was even contained a note of scorn. You overwrote my magic, Trey. Does this mean your signature spell is stronger than mine? Perhaps Riddle hadn't noticed the way the students were despairing, or maybe he hadn't cared. All that concerned him was his own magic. The look on his face could even have been described as innocent. Maybe he didn't understand what he had tried to do to Ace. I lost to your magic, Trey? Then, so I'm... Of course not, Riddle. You should know better than anyone how amazing you are. Take a deep breath and listen to me. Trey reached a gentle hand out toward his shoulder, but Riddle jerked away. No! He twisted his face up into a scowl. Are you going to tell me that I'm wrong too, Trey? After all I've done to protect the rule of law? Do you know how much I've suffered for this? His shriek was such that Yuya wondered if it would send all the scattered playing cards flying. He covered his face with his hands as if trying to hide eyes that threatened to fill with tears. I refuse to believe this, Riddle grumbled. His scepter dropped to the ground. Is that? Ace's eyes opened wide in surprise. Is that blot? The shining red mage stone was now darkly muddied. Yuya recalled the head mage's words from the previous day. First, the mage stone would be dyed black. Next, the blot would linger in the mage's body until it eventually spilled out. When it got to that point, what did happen when it got to that point? Riddle was rubbing his face and muttering something. Perhaps the effect of Trey's spell had run out, as the rose bushes suddenly reappeared. Cease this immediately, Mr. Rosehearts, the head mage shouted. Any further attempt to use magic will leave your mage stone completely tainted with blot. The head mage's warning echoed in Yuya's ears. This you must avoid at all costs. The very lives of the mage and the people in the vicinity are in danger in such a situation. Still, hiding his face in his hands, Riddle began shouting loudly enough to almost rip his throat open. But I'm right! I'm the one who's right! There is no possible alternative! Riddle, Trey shouted. Before his eyes, the last sliver of red light disappeared from Riddle's mage stone. Darkness seethed into the black stone. For a fleeting moment, there was almost an impossible silence. And then the change came. Plush! Something dripped from Riddle's hanging head. Plush, 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 plush. Black liquid oozed from his red hair and spread out in a stain at his feet. The moment he saw this black pool, everything came together in Yuya's mind. There was no mistake. This was the same sediment they'd seen in the enchanted mine. Blot, the residue generated as the price for magic. Riddle turned his small face forward lifelessly, and Yuya gasped. It was filthy with blot, which dripped down from his forehead like some kind of bizarre mask. The glistening black liquid seeped into his body through his eyes, his nose, his mouth. Yuya could see his slender neck steadily dyed black from the inside. The blot dripping onto his white uniform, transforming it into a repulsive mess of ooze. As the dripping liquid dried up from the edges, it left in its wake a tattered ball gown. The blot crawled across Riddle's skin, becoming boots, gloves, and a crown, resembling the garb of a queen. The group assembled on the lawn stared, stunned at this transformation, and Riddle grinned at them, now clad in his wetly black ornamentation. Everyone get back! Crowley yelled. The blot continued to pour from the vessel that was Riddle, and then it erupted, scattering in all directions. Yuya protected his face from the black droplets with his arms, and in that moment, he saw a massive lump peel away from Riddle's back and fall to the ground. It twitched and pulsed and then began to crawl slowly. Ever so slowly. What is that? Trey asked as he took a fearful step back. Hey, Ace shouted and shuddered like he couldn't believe what he was looking at. Whoa, that's Isn't that the monster from the enchanted mine? An enormous newborn mass pulled itself up and resolved into a creature so large, Yuya had to tilt his neck back to look up at its ink bottle head. It really did look a lot like the monster that had attacked them in the enchanted mine. But this creature now, standing behind Riddle, seemed to be much bigger, maybe because of the torn pieces of fabric that billowed out voluminously from its waist. Its queenly outfit was a near perfect match with the transformed Riddle's costume. Wait, I feel like its head's a different shape though, Deuce said, pointing at the ink bottle. Although it was made of the same glass as the head of the monster from the mine, the head of the creature before them was in the shape of a heart rather than a circle. The same inky black fluid sloshed inside it though. It all made sense to Yuya now. The head contained blot. It leaked through the cracks in the glass and splattered on the torn-up lawn. The creature was so hideous that Yuya could hardly bear to look at it, and yet Riddle seemed to lean toward it. "You are fools to defy me. You are not welcome in my world." It was no longer Riddle's voice he heard. It wasn't even a human voice. The entity had no apparent gender. Sinister, with several layers of warped sound, the voice came from black lips. "In my world, I am the law. I am order made manifest. The only response I will accept from you is yes, House Warden Riddle. All who defy me will lose their heads." His slim figure floated up into the air. The blood dripping from Riddle's arms led to the monster behind him, which was raising him up towards the sky as if pretending to be a newborn baby. "Ha ha ha ha! Mwah ha ha ha!" Riddle laughed, his head swinging back and forth hard enough to nearly break his neck, and his right eye flashed with a fiery red gleam. The light blazed like flames before vanishing, and it made Yuya itch with uneasiness for some reason. The creature ripped a nearby rosebush out of the ground with terrifying ease and swung it like a scythe to mow them all down. The head mage quickly held up his scepter to cast a spell, and a veil-like film appeared, with him in the center, protecting Yuya and the others from the knife-like leaves of the bush. "Dear me, what have I done?" Crowley said as his lips trembled. "I've allowed a student to overblot in my presence. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You allowed that to happen, Crowley. Yes, you did." There were probably things that you could have done, but now this has happened. Overblot. Blot overflowing. This was the situation that was meant to be avoided at all costs. What would happen to Riddle? Yuya asked if anyone knew, but Deuce, Grim, and Ace all shook their heads, their faces pale. Is the monster the House Warden's transformation? Is this all because of Blot? Deuce asked. And the head mage assented vaguely, most likely. Most likely? Grim turned his eyes up at him. "We've got this seriously freaky monster here, and this guy's got nothing? And that Grouch is even bigger Grouch now? He was firing off spells at me over there, laughing like a hyena the whole time. What's going on?" "To put it in layman's terms, he's evil. He's in evil berserk mode," Cater explained to the confused group. The head mage nodded. At the moment, Rose Hearts is overcome by negative energy and has lost control of his enormous emotions, as well as his magic. We must restore his consciousness before he exhausts his magical energy. Otherwise, lives will be lost. The roar of the beast and the shrieks of the students drowned out the head mage. Riddle has shifted his ire from Yuya and the other students directly in front of him to students farther away. Crowley threw a protective spell their way. "The well-being of my students is my top priority," he shouted. "I must evacuate them immediately. I need all of you to seek assistance from the other instructors and house ward." "Yeah, take that, Ace's yell interrupted the head mage. The wind magic he unleashed scattered the petals of the rose bushes in the monster's grip. "I summon the cauldron," Deuce shouted. "Yeah," Grim howled. When Riddle dodged Deuce's enormous cauldron, Grim hit him with fire. Riddle glared at them as he brushed aside the flying fireball with one hand. Despite how easily the House Warden had evaded their spells, Deuce and Grim stayed low in their fighting stances, ready to launch their next blows. Hey, 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 what are you guys doing? Cater grabbed Grim and yanked him up. His tone was uncharacteristically rough in his surprise. Didn't you hear the head mage? He said to go and get the teachers and the other house wardens. But if we just leave House Warden Roseheart, Deuce shook his head firmly. We need to stop him now. I don't want this on my conscience. Deuce is right on the money. I ain't letting my start as a great magician be ruined by a mess like this, and... Ace gripped his magical pen tightly, laser focused on Riddle. I'm not giving up until I hear him say I was wrong and I'm sorry. The three of them boldly faced Riddle. Cater and the head mage were speechless at the sight, their expressions a mix of exasperation, admiration, and surprise. The students had only just started at the academy, first years who had no real magic to speak of, and yet they held their heads high and stood strong in the face of such danger. At first, Trey was equally baffled, but when he followed Ace's gaze and squared his shoulders, he squeezed his eyes shut, and when he opened them again, they were fiercely determined. All right, let's do this. Trey, Cater yelled. Trey pulled his magical pen out of the interior pocket of his jacket. I can overwrite his magic for a little longer. In the meantime, do what you can. Head mage, please evacuate the other students. Wait right there, Crowley said. This is simply too dangerous. Yes, that. I can't believe even you're taking it like this, Trey. Cater cried, more desperate than the head mage in his attempt to stop Trey. As someone who'd witnessed Riddle's power up close and personal while standing by his side for the last year, he was only too aware of the danger Riddle posed. You can't beat him, not to mention he's overblotted, okay? Forget taking your head, he'll crush you. We can't beat him, so what, Ace declared, showing no sign of retreating. You're not even gonna fight unless you know you can win? That's weak, Grim agreed. The weakest, Deuce nodded in agreement with Ace and Grim, and looked back at Riddle. Plus, the way he's going, I have a hard time believing the House Warden's magic will hold out until the teachers get here. Riddle called forth a gust of wind that propelled rose leaves up into a hurricane. They burned a brilliant red as they whipped through the air. Blocks of ice that had been trapping students' feet melted, creating clouds of steam, obstructing the view of the garden. Riddle seemed to be casting spells entirely at random. All of you, bow down to me. Kneel, he shrieked, blood scattering from his lips. We have to do something to stop him, Trey said. I don't want to lose him. There are too many things I've left unsaid. Are the four of you even serious? This is for real bonkers. Cater begged and sought out Yuya with his eyes, pleading for help with a desperate look on his face. Right, Yui? You think so too, yeah? He had no doubt Yuya would agree with him, since he'd witnessed how the first years from another world had done nothing but cover before Riddle. And it was true. If Yuya thought about it with a cool head, fighting Riddle when he had lost all reason was a dangerous bet. He didn't want Ace, Deuce, or Grim to put themselves in danger, but he already knew only too well that they were not the type to obediently follow orders and warnings. In which case, Yuya could ask only one thing of them. I really don't like fighting, he said. Right? Cater's face brightened. Totes, me too, you bet. So let's end this as fast as we can, Cater. Huh? That's what you think? Cater opened and closed his mouth a few times, a troubled look on his face. But when he realized that neither Trey nor Yuya was going to yield, he turned his head back to the heavens in resignation. Oh, why? He ran his hands through his hair in frustration before growling, Fine, I get it, I can't just abandon you, I'll help. But I need you to know that this is very not me, okay? Sorry, Cater, Trey smiled. Thanks. For what? I mean, anyone can see this isn't just your problem, Trey. Cater pulled his mussed hair back into a neat ponytail and winked. And I am 100% the perfect person to soothe our little savage beast. Well, I'm sold, Ace laughed. The head mage sighed at length. Why are all the students at our beloved academy so fiercely hot-blooded? I will return as soon as I have evacuated the students to safety. Stand firm until then. It simply would not do to have a series of overblots now, would it? Oh, is that so, Crowley? You don't want a series of overblots? Fine. My oh my. You must ensure that you do not overexert yourselves. Understood? Understood, Trey said, an obedient look on his face. When he turned his magical pen on Riddle, the house warden's face twisted up. Such defiance from every last one of you. I shall take all of your heads. He waved his hand and the monster swung the giant rose bush. Now that the head mage was gone, Yuya was exposed to the gale so intense he barely put one foot in front of the other. He wasn't alone, as Grimm's tiny body flew up into the sky. Oh no! Oh, Grimm! Grimm's tiny body, nearly flew up into the sky. Okay. They huddled together and waited for the storm behind a half-destroyed hedge. How do you get a guy who's overblooded to go back to normal? Ace yelled at Trey, undaunted by the flying grit. Trey shook his head slowly. I don't know, he admitted. You don't know? Ace cried while Cater rolled his eyes. So you really haven't thought this all through? Cater commented. I mean, all I know is that they taught us in history class, Trey said. I heard there aren't even that many actual cases of it happening to begin with. How am I supposed to know how to fix this? The protective hedge suddenly turned to ice, and the branches shattered into a million pieces as piercing light flew at their necks. Riddle's magic was as sharp as ever. It had actually increased in strength as he howled for everything outside of himself to obey. Trey dropped to the ground and rolled aside, turning the spell into playing cards just as they were all on the verge of being collared. Ah! Riddle howled, furious at the scattering cards. And so they caught fire. Each time he shouted, the creature sent drops of blot flying outward, as if in response. The expanding stains were so black they looked like holes to the center of the earth, and just the sight of them sent a cold shiver up Yuya's spine. The roses still attached to the bush in the creature's grip appeared to be pulsing. Or was the terror of being under attack like this making Yuya hallucinate? Ugh, Cater grimaced. If we keep playing defense here, we're gonna make Riddle use up his magic faster. Yeah, Trey nodded fiercely. We have to do something. Before them, Riddle was so pale he looked like he might collapse at any second. He curled his lips into something that might have been a smile. I am, he began. He shuddered violently and the monster wrapped itself around him from behind as if in an embrace. The black liquid that spilled from the ink bottle wet his face. Yes, I am absolutely positively right. I am the law of this world, Riddle declared. Immersed in the repulsive blot, Riddle smiled as if at peace. Yuya couldn't help but feel that the creature was absorbing Riddle's mind. Blot stretched out like an umbilical cord to connect Riddle to the monster. Riddle waved his arms, the monster waved its arms. The monster threw its head back, Riddle threw his head back. Yuya couldn't tell which of them had moved first. Can we pull that monster behind him away from Riddle? He asked quietly. Trey had apparently been thinking the same. Yeah, seems like a good bet to peel that thing off of him, huh? They all nodded firmly and sprang into action. Trey defended against Riddle's magic, while Cater and Yuya drew Riddle's attention using Cater's signature spell. With that opening, Ace, Deuce, and Grimm threw everything they had at the monster. Take that, you ding-dong! Of all the times, of all the insults you could have thrown at this guy, you choose ding-dong. That's a choice, Ace! Ace shouted as he launched a gust of wind at the monster's chest. The ball of air bounced back and carved out a hollow cavity in its torso, but the vines and leaves rushed up to fill the hole, forming a disturbingly swollen mass of green. The lump twisted, writhed, dripped, and twitched like it had a mind of its own. If they couldn't blow it away, then they would wash it off. With the image of a stormy river in his mind, Deuce unleashed a torrent on the same spot. The black liquid grew slightly thinner and stretched out loosely, but the drops that fell onto the ground were still moving. Grimm lobbed fireballs at them until they finally disappeared with a sizzling sound. Grrrah! The monster roared loud enough to shake the earth itself. Riddle also groaned through his connection with it, a pained grimace on his face. Why does everyone get in my way? He asked as tears filled his eyes. He grabbed the arm of a nearby Cater avatar and clung to him desperately, pleadingly, shaking all over. I'm right. I have to be. Otherwise, what was any of it for? Riddle, Cater said. The Cater besides Yuya disappeared and only the real one remained, held captive by Riddle. The blot oozing from Riddle's fingertips crackled as it devoured his shoulder. Ugh, Cater cried and twisted away. But the desperate Riddle cleaved to him with a force that seemed impossible for his slender form. And, try as he might, Cater couldn't pull free. Throwing Ace off, the monster whipped the rose bush up into the air. The petals of the flowers were almost entirely scattered, and the sullied corpses of roses still clung to the branches, shone like they were on fire. A split second before the massive bush hit Cater's head, Trey shrieked, "Paint the roses!" The rose bush was overwritten with a pack of cards. "Riddle, stop!" Trey shouted as he pushed the house warden's hands off of Cater. They were black with magic and pointed into claws that shivered at Trey's touch. Riddle gazed up at him, lost. "Why, Trey? I made sure to follow the rules," he asked. "But you don't have to. I should have told you that a long, long time ago." Trey faced Riddle, his voice trembling. "It's my fault, which is why I have to stop you." But Riddle seemed to no longer be hearing Trey's voice. Cater's complaints, Ace's battle cry, Deuce's shout, Grimm's roar, Yuya's call, he heard none of them at all. He shrank back almost pitifully, turning into someone who wasn't there. "I was wrong, but that's impossible, isn't it, Mother?" Chapter 15. Mother was always right. "Happy 8th birthday, Riddle," she said. "Every year on my birthday, she gave me a cake specifically made to make me healthier. As she placed my birthday cake in front of me, she said, 'This year's birthday cake is a low-sugar recipe made with some nuts and lectin-rich soy flour to improve your cerebral functions.' 'Thank you,' I said, and she smiled. Mom always says that everything she did was for my sake, that she was only thinking of me when she said things like that. This was all for me, for my sake. She loves me the most out of anyone in the whole world, so maybe she'll listen when I ask for something. But, just for once, I wish I could try one of those tarts covered with the bright red strawberries," I asked timidly. We always passed by a local cake shop on our Sunday walk, so I had seen the tart in a window, decorated with what looked like jewels. It seemed like a different creature from the brown cake I always got. It was almost too beautiful to be real. The way it sparkled and shone. Could people really eat it? What did the fluffy cream taste like? How sweet were those strawberries on top? I wanted to try that tart. When I told her, Mommy suddenly started to get angry. "Absolutely not," she said. "Incest. Those tarts are monstrously unhealthy. I might as well feed you poison. Even just a single slice would exceed your recommended intake of sugar for the whole day. And taking in all that sugar at once won't do you a lick of good. That is not something you should be eating." I loved my mommy. She was always right, all the time. If she said so, then it had to be true. Now, dinner tonight will be a healthy tuna sauté rich in DHA and omega-3 fatty acids. But what is the recommended caloric intake for a single meal for an 8-year-old child? She asked me. 600 kilocalories, Mom, I responded dutifully. Correct. So you mustn't eat more than 100 grams. Understood? Yes, when I nodded, Mommy told me what a good boy I was. I didn't need anything else. I never talked about strawberry tarts again. That's enough classical magic study for today, Mother said, and held out a classic text about magical ethics. On the first page of the thick volume was the famous dedication, "To all the mages." At the time, I was several years into my education as a mage, and I could read the books grown-up mages read. Read up to chapter 3 before tomorrow and summarize the reading in less than 1,000 words. Now, you may have 1 hour of independent study. Thank you, Mother, I said dutifully. Excellent. I have an errand to run, so I will see you in an hour. Mother smiled and left the room. She had a work engagement every day at this time that she absolutely could not miss. When she returned, we would begin the study of potionology. Until then, I would prepare for the lesson. She had packed every academic subject into a daily schedule that ran down to the minute. If I performed well, I would be praised. If I didn't, I would be punished. But I had no complaints. After all, Mother was always right, so if she said it was important, then it must be. This was my normal. Days of what was right without any deviation. What brought it all tumbling down was a faint sound against the window. Is someone knocking on the window? I stood up and unlocked the window and opened it. There were two boys outside. Ah, he opened it, a boy with green hair said, brightening with a smile. Glasses much too big for his face were pushed up by his cheeks and slid off to one side. Hey, come play with us, a boy who was half cat with purple ears insisted as he yanked on my hand. I was so surprised by the softness of his hand on mine that I automatically pulled back. Who are you? I asked. Just saying that made my heart pound. It was the first time I'd done anything that wasn't on the schedule. Oh, Chanya's legal name. I am Artemievich Pinker, the cat boy said. Artemievich Pinker, I repeated. That's a really long name. Wow, I've never seen a kid who could say Chanya's name after hearing it only one time. The boy with the glasses laughed. I'm Trey. Hey, come play croquet with us. I shook my head. I can't. It's independent study time. I have to study. I was sure that I had disappointed them and that they would leave. The thought made me incredibly sad, even though I was the one who had refused. I poked at the neatly cleaned rug with my toes. Independent study, huh? That means you get to pick what you do, right? Chenya asked. Huh? When I lifted my face, Chenya's ears were twitching merrily. My grandpa always says play is a form of study, he said. He's right, Trey insisted. Just play with us for a little bit. Oh, okay. Just for a little, though, I agreed. Carefully, I brought over a chair so I could climb out the window, making sure it didn't make any sound dragging it across the floor. My heart was leaping in my chest, pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. I stood up on the chair and set one foot on the ledge. Trey held out his hand. Hey, what's your name? He asked. Riddle. Riddle Horsehearts, I responded. That was the moment I made my first friends. I had the best time playing with Trey and Chenya. I'd known the rules of croquet, but I'd never played it before. They were surprised when I first told them that. When I said I'd never played hide and seek or tag either, they were even more surprised, and they played all kinds of games with me. The hour flew by in the blink of an eye. What's wrong, Riddle? Trey asked. You look like you're gonna cry. We could play again tomorrow, you know. 3's way more fun than 2, Chenya told him. And you like 3 better than 1, yeah? Yeah, I nodded. I want to see you and Trey again tomorrow. Let's play. After that, I snuck out of my room every day to play with them. For just that 1 hour during independent study, it became our playtime. It wasn't just croquet. They knew about lots of things I had no clue about. TV shows that were popular, the festival that was happening in the neighborhood soon, the orange kittens that had been born a couple houses over. It was all fun, but the most exciting thing was talking about sweets I'd never eaten. What? You've never tried a strawberry tart, Riddle? Chenya asked. Nope, I shook my head. Mother says sugar is basically poison, so I'm not allowed. Well, sure, if you eat a whole one by yourself, maybe. Trey got a sad look on his face, so I asked what was wrong, and he told me that his family ran a cake shop. The strawberry tart I longed for, the one sitting in the window, which I had dreamed of for so long, that was from Trey's family shop. I know, he said suddenly in a bright voice. Come have some right now. What? I exclaimed. Did I look that hungry? I hurriedly shook my head, but Trey grinned. It's super yummy, he said. But, Mother, 1 slice isn't gonna kill you. Plus, I know Mom and Dad would be happy if you came over, Riddle. Excellent idea, but I want more than just a slice. I want a whole tart, Chenya declared. Okay, no. He shook his head firmly. Not happening. So, are you sure? I followed them to Trey's house. Trey's little brother and sister were inside. No matter how many times Trey told them to go play somewhere else, they kept chattering with me, full of curiosity. His house was so busy, his family so animated. Even the way Trey sighed with relief when they finally left seemed to be happily fond. And I thought about how different it was from my house. I waited with Chenya in Trey's room. Here you are. Go on, dig in, Trey said as he placed a shiny red strawberry tart on a snowy white plate before me. When I stared, unable to believe it really existed, Trey and Chenya laughed. Hurry up and eat it, Chenya insisted. I poked it with a silver fork, and the strawberries were knocked off balance and neatly fell off the edge. So a tart was a fragile thing. I carefully cut off a small bite and put it in my mouth. How happy I was in that moment! I can still feel it like it was yesterday. I never get sick of replaying the memory. A sweetness the likes of which I'd never experienced spread across my tongue. The rich cream melted inside my mouth and slid gently down my throat. The crust of the tart crumbled and broke apart at the mere touch of my teeth. The jewel-like strawberries were not as sweet as they looked. When I bit into them, I was surprised at the fruit juice that spilled into my mouth. This was the real thing. Huh, so this was what it tasted like. This was what it smelled like. It was sourer than I'd imagined and much, much more delicious. Ah, to think that something so tasty existed in this world. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Tenya, I said. Trey grinned. When you eat it with a look like that on your face, I almost want to be the one thanking you. I get how Riddle feels. Your family's tarts are so yummy, Chenya said. I would never forget that day. I never wanted to forget it. I ate the tart one heavenly bite at a time, slowly savoring it as if it in a dream. I also forgot the passage of time. I cannot believe this. Not only are you cutting independent study time, but you go out and eat a mountain of sugar, Mother exclaimed. Waiting for me when I hurried back to my room was my mother. She looked very scary. As soon as she saw my face through the window, she dragged me into the room, shouted at Trey and Chenya to never come back, and slammed the window shut. Mother peppered me with questions. Who were they? How long have you known them? What were you doing? Why did you do that? And I answered them honestly. I thought that if I lied to her any more than I already had, she would stop talking to me. I hate that. I hate that a lot. I see. Those two hoodlums must have incited this behavior. This is exactly why you must never play with children who have barely been educated ever again, she demanded. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, Mother. I promise it will never happen again, I pleaded. My nose prickled, my eyes grew hot, and tears started to flow. Not because I was scared of Mother, but because the mere thought of how things would be from now on made me impossibly sad. So please, just let me see them. Be quiet. This is your fault for breaking the rules, Mother said, and locked the window. When I think back on it, that lock was only open for a month or two at most. I'm sure I couldn't have hidden my bad behavior for too long. All that was left for me was what was right. At the end of my foolish act, one lesson was clear. Break the rules, and even fun will be taken from you. That's why I absolutely had to obey Mother's rules. After that, my life became much more regimented, and Mother's gaze became even stricter. I adhered unerringly to a curriculum without independent study time. I vowed to never break Mother's rules again. After all, she was the most accomplished mother in the city, and therefore the most correct. Yes, my mother has always correct. But, Mom, why? Why did my heart hurt so much? I wanted to eat a tart, if only on my birthday. Why did I feel this way even though I knew it was wrong? The truth is, I didn't want to study all the time. I wanted to play outside all day long. Hey Mom, you know what? Croquet hoops are only this big. Trey and Chenya told me my shot was amazing. They said they couldn't believe it when it was my first time playing. I wished I could see them again. I wonder what they were doing now. I hadn't even gotten to say goodbye. Maybe they'd already forgotten me. I wanted to talk about that day. I wanted loads more friends I could laugh and play with. It hurts. I study, I obey the rules, but my heart is always hurting. It actually keeps getting worse. I try to claw it out. I try to throw it up, but the prickling pain continues. It hurts. It's so hard, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. Tell me, Mom, what rule do I need to follow to make this pain go away? Riddle! Someone's calling me. Mom? Maybe it's Mom. I hope it is. I would be so happy if Mom called Mom. No. I would be so happy if Mom called out to me like this. So gently, so desperately, so indiscreetly. But it's not. I know it's not her. So who is it then? Chapter 60. Riddle! Hey, can you hear me? Riddle! Trey called desperately, shaking the shoulders of Riddle, who lay limp on the ground. Hader reached out to stop him. Don't go shaking him like that. You don't know what's going to shake loose. In a bad way, he cautioned. But, Trey said, Mr. Diamond is correct, said the head mage, crouching by his side. His face had been grim ever since he'd returned from evacuating the other students, and they told him Riddle wouldn't wake up. Although you did manage to stop him, the burden of Mr. Roseheart's after overblooding is unfathomable. This is the first case that I've seen myself, so I cannot predict its outcome. All their hard work, the way they dug deep down to muster every bit of strength they had, paid off. They gradually chipped away at the creature's strength until at last it fell, and the blot connection with Riddle was ripped away. Like a flower withering, the creature shrunk, crumbling from the extremities inward, and became skinnier before the eyes, smaller and smaller until it dropped to the ground. Finally, it became a vicious mass and spasmed as if seeking to continue its mission, but Ace-induced fired magic at it, and in the end, only the head remained. There was an unpleasant slurping sound as the blot inside the bottle was spat out onto the lawn. Once the head was empty, countless cracks raced along the surface of the ink bottle until it shattered into pieces. In the blink of an eye, the blot staining the area was gone. It had been so black, so thick, so heavy even, in the air, and yet suddenly there was not so much as a drop of that sinister liquid in sight. The stagnant air cleared and the evening sun burned beautifully, its brilliant orange bathing the thoroughly destroyed Heartslabyul garden. Only the memory of the intense battle remained. Riddle, please. Trey wrapped his hands around Riddle's as if in prayer, and then they heard a quiet groan. Ugh. Riddle? Thank goodness, is he awake? Hader asked. Riddle opened his eyes and Deuce slumped weakly to the ground. You okay? Yuya asked with a concerned frown. I'm just relieved, Deuce said, smiling faintly. Ace also hung his head and let out a deep breath. Riddle began as he sat up. Ugh! Ace clicked his tongue at him and said heatedly, So you finally came to your senses. Geez, man, do you even know what happened here? Someone gets a teensy bit mad at you and you go on a total rampage? I mean, how spoiled are you? Seriously? Perhaps due to his immense relief, the words Ace spat out were merciless. When he saw Riddle staring at him blankly, he grew even more peeved. Hey, I'm talking to you. The garden's all torn up, not to mention that we all could have died. You really... The truth is Riddle said softly, I really wanted to eat the chestnut tart. Huh? Ace's eyes widened at the sudden confession. The same confused look appeared on the faces of Trey, Cater, and everyone else around them. With lips still drained of blood, Riddle continued to speak his mind as if delirious. I don't care if the roses are white or if the flamingos are pink, and I prefer honey to sugar cubes in my tea, and I like milk tea better than lemon tea anyhow. And after dinner, I want to be the one sitting around talking with everyone. Riddle's voice gradually grew muddier until it was unintelligible. His big eyes were wet with tears. Droplets caught on his lower lashes, just barely stopping along the edges of his eyes. I always wanted to play with you in Chenya, Trey. I really wanted, with everyone, and He howled. Riddle, Trey said softly, and the floodgates finally opened. Riddle burst into tears. This was no half-hearted weeping. Tears pouring down his cheeks, snot hung from his nose, and his chest heaved with choking sobs. Without even a wherewithal to hide his face, he turned his head up to the sky and wailed. No way. Riddle Rosehearts? Crying like a baby? Hader gaped at the unexpected sight. Yeah, geez, you're busting my eardrums, Grim growled. What the, am I the baddie? Ace mused and pursed his lips in a pout. You think a few crocodile tears is all it'll take for me to forgive you? Give the guy a break, Ace, Deuce said, rolling his eyes. Trey rubbed Riddle's shaking back. Riddle, I'm sorry too. I knew you were struggling and all I did was pretend not to notice. But that was no good. I get it now. He apologized. Trey's face was serious as he grabbed a hold of Riddle's shoulders, his hands determined and powerful. That he was making a real effort to be open and honest with the boy before him was painfully clear. His gaze was kind yet severe, roving to those who were watching. I'm gonna say what I should have said earlier, Trey continued. Your way of doing things is wrong, and you owe everyone an apology. I'm sorry, Riddle said, hiccuping. His face crumpled up and he sobbed. I'm so sorry, I'm really sorry. Stunned, Deuce threw up his hands, exclaiming, To think that the house warden would bow his head like this to us. Mrah! Grim sniffed indignantly, so long as he gets it. Yeah, that, Gator said with a soft smile. And it's not just Riddle. We all get it now, truly. House warden, Ace's voice was quiet as he addressed the sobbing Riddle. I know I've been saying I wanted an apology from you, but now that I got one, you know what? Riddle lifted his damp face. What? With a smile still on his face, Ace took a deep breath. One stupid I'm sorry doesn't even come close to making up for what you did, he barked, his face coloring with anger. I will never forgive you. Dude, Cater's face tightened. Way to be capital J jerk. And proud of it, Ace clenched his fists into tight fists. His hands into tight fists. Have you forgotten how he made a total fool out of me? Have you forgotten how he just threw away the chestnut tart we worked so hard on? That ain't something you can go away and with a few tears and a flimsy I'm sorry. Wow, I ain't ever met anyone better at holding grudges than me, Grim commented as he rolled his eyes alongside Cater and Deuce. Even Yuya was exasperated. Despite the fact that he'd been battered and beaten and basically dragged through a ditch, Ace was still raring for a fight? Ace, Yuya's voice was quiet. You said that you'd forgive him if he apologized. Shut it, Ace snapped. This guy owes me for real. Then, what do you want me to do? Riddle asked, baffled. Ace crouched down before him and looked off to one side. I don't got a birthday coming up anytime soon, you know. What are you talking about? Trey asked, perplexed. I demand a do-over for the unbirthday party, Ace declared, and the look of surprise on Yuya's face matched Riddle's. The one was over before it began. We didn't even get to eat any of those tasty treats. So can we get a do-over? Riddle's jaw hung open, and Ace glared at him. Except this time, you're the one who will bring the tart, he demanded. Me? Riddle said, looking questioningly up at Trey like he didn't understand what Ace was saying. And no getting Trey to make it for you, Ace warned. I know how Trey is. He'd totally bake the whole thing for you and treat you like a spoiled little prince. You gotta do the work yourself. His eyebrows shot up to his forehead while his mouth slipped up at the corners. Do that, and then things will be squared away between us. Okay? You got it? Yeah, I got it, Riddle nodded. But Ace remained as pouty as ever. He looked as though he were deliberately putting on an unhappy face for show. He was maybe even blushing. Except you had lots of help making your tarts, Cater nodded snidely. So true. Takes the easy way out himself, he's all talk, Deuce replied. Yuya laughed. They were totally right. The grumpy refusal to simply admit how he felt was very Ace. The head mage cleared his throat. While you no doubt have much to discuss, I am concerned about the effects of the overblot. Let's hurry to the nurse's office. Crowley and Trey lifted Riddle to his feet and helped him out of the garden. Cater, what happened? Yelled a Heartslabyul student. Where's the house warden? And the vice house warden? Are they okay? Called out another voice. The dorm students started trickling back into the garden, pestering Cater for information. Peachy keen, kiddos. I'm sure our beloved house warden will tell you all about it later, he said and clapped his hands. In the meantime, looks like we've got some cleaning up to do. What? Do we have to do it today? I'm exhausted, Ace said as he slumped down onto the ground. The lawn had been peeled back, exposing the dirt beneath, but his white dorm uniform was already filthy, so he probably didn't care anymore. Nope, our perfectly picturesque garden's a total tire fire. And you know what the other dorms would say if we left it like this. The mage stones of Ace and the others who'd helped to stop Riddle were already starting to turn black and powerless, so they were forced to manually clean up while the returning students used magic to carefully replant the scattered rose bushes and restore the chaos of the garden to its usual beautiful state. The bushes might just die on us anyway, Cater sighed, but we'll feel better now that they're where they're supposed to be. They couldn't put the roses back, though, so the end result was a sad shadow of the original garden, with no red to punctuate the green, and even the green was a bit on the sparse side. Nevertheless, Cater looked satisfied as he took a picture with his phone. Grim, Yuya called, looking around. Grim had been lazing next to him, not doing much of anything, but now he was nowhere to be seen. Yuya walked around looking for him and eventually found the monster crouched down beneath a rose bush, digging up the soft dirt like they had only just put back. "What are you doing?" he asked. "We just filled that hole." "Something smelling real good right there." He held up a muddy paw. "Got it." Yuya gasped when he saw the round stone nestled in those paw pads. "You found one of those on the ground at the enchanted mine, too." The stone was so strangely black that Yuya could still see it despite how dark it now was that the sun had set. It looked almost identical to the stone that Grim had eaten at the enchanted mine. Deuce and Ace peered at it from either side. "You're right," Deuce frowned. "Wonder where it came from." "Just don't put it in your mouth this time," Ace told the small monster. "Last time we were really..." "Hey! Down the hatch!" Grim tossed the stone into his mouth, ignoring Ace's attempt to stop him. Cater's eyebrows flew up in surprise. "Oh, Grimmy, we have some self-respect. That's literal trash." "Ah," Grim licked his chops with an ecstatic look on his face, as if lost in a dream. He was completely taken over by the flavor of the stone. Rich and sweet, but with a complex hint of bitterness in the aftertaste. Equally delicious, but quite different mouthfeel than the one I ate last time. "I guess this is just a thing now?" Yuya raised concerned eyebrows. "Should we try and get him to stop, though?" "Well, he is a monster. Maybe it's okay," Ace guessed as he smiled indulgently at the overjoyed Grim. "He was bouncing around last time, too. Guess his stomach's made different from ours." Grim rubbed his belly. "I just tried the grass and the flavor was surprisingly pleasant. Crisp even. Perfect palate cleanser." "Hey, don't eat that." Deuce grabbed Grim around the back and started pulling. "We just put that grass back." But Grim was intent on nibbling the grass and refused to budge. Maybe he was really hungry. Ace joined Deuce and tugged on Grim, and the soft leaves of the rose bushes were rustled. Cater watched with a smile and snapped a picture of the group on his phone. The gentle downturn of his eyes seemed more peaceful than usual. "Thanks, guys," he murmured. Ace and the others appeared not to hear him. Yuya now understood that staying quiet and watching people was one option that should be respected, which was exactly why that act also carried responsibility. Cater always had a kind of look on his face, but he wasn't a mere observer. He was one of the people shaping Heartslabyul. He probably knew that himself, and one of the people who had turned a blind eye to Riddle's tyranny. He might face some tough questions going forward. But as Yuya looked at him, Cater's face brightened into a smile, as if to say mere details like that didn't matter. Oh no, not the subtitles. Oh, we almost finished this chapter too. Alright, hold on. Will it come back? How long will it take? Who's to say? But we're almost done, guys. We have one more chapter and then like an epilogue left. Not too bad, not too bad. We may finish a little bit after 10, maybe even before 10. Who's to say? If the subtitles would like to work again. Pretty please? Pretty please? But I do think it was really... There we go. It was very interesting to see Riddle's flashback from Riddle's perspective more clearly. Like, it was in the mind space of him as a kid. Which I feel like was a little bit more impactful, I think. But as Yuya looked at him, Cater's face brightened into a smile, as if to say mere details like that didn't matter. He was glad that Cater could speak up now and that they were all okay. He was glad Ace had gotten the collar off. He was glad Deuce could laugh now. He was glad that he had realized in that moment exactly what it was that he wanted to do. A sense of accomplishment he had never felt before filled his heart. Chapter 17. So, did you make up in the end? Yuya asked. Make up? Ace erupted into laughter. We're not babies. There's gotta be a better way of putting it. Yuya frowned. He didn't actually know how else to ask the question. It had been 2 weeks since Riddle had overblotted at Heartslabyul. During that time, Yuya and the others had talked occasionally during breaks or after school, but they hadn't hung out much more often than that. But that morning, Ace and Deuce had abruptly come knocking at Ramshackle's dorm door, declaring, now that everything's settled down. It was pretty early on a Sunday, so Grim was still sleeping. Despite the hour, both boys were in their dorm uniforms and looking quite formal. The fact that they had made a point of coming over to report on recent events no doubt meant that there had been some kind of watershed. Last night they called all the dorm students together and the house warden, Deuce said from where he sat on the sofa, and then bent abruptly at the waist, his head almost touching his knees. Riddle said, I was wrong to do the things I did. My apologies. He bowed so deeply it was pretty unreal. Yeah, Ace agreed. But even still, it's not like everyone's just gotta be all, oh sure, all is forgiven, you know? Huh? Yuya said surprised, even though Riddle apologized so sincerely. Well, yeah, duh, Ace snorted. The upperclassmen especially. They had to live that wild life for a whole year. They must be holding super serious grudges. Riddle's all apologies now, but with that personality, it's only natural he'd have some enemies both inside and outside the dorm. Those guys only complained about him behind his back, though, instead of actually talking to him. I'm not so sure about them. Deuce had a complicated look on his face, but Ace was indifferent. Whatevs, they all suck, he declared. Practical Ace and compassionate Deuce. Their different personalities were displayed in their reactions to reality. It wasn't a matter of one or the other being right. Deuce's face remained clouded, but he went all the way to overblotting. I think the house warden's got his own things going on. Clover won't tell us any details, though. In most cases, there was no difference in the amount of blot each mage could accumulate. Thus, the more powerful the magic, the higher the risk of blot buildup. But an excellent mage like Riddle would naturally have known that, so how had he ended up in that situation? There was, in fact, a trigger that supposedly made overblot more likely to occur, and that was the mage's mental state. When a magic user held on to negative emotions, such as anger, sadness, or confusion, the amount of blot increased dramatically. As a result, there was a greater risk of overblot. The head mage had later explained to Yuya and the others that the creature behind Riddle was the fusion of those negative emotions and blot. It seemed like their choice to separate the creature from Riddle had been the right one. When they returned to Ramshackle Dorm that day, there was a black stain in Grimm's Magestone. But the head mage had been right when he told them the blot would disappear once Grimm was properly rested. The Magestone was now back to its original lovely lilac color. Yuya peeked at Grimm as he lay asleep on his back, and the monster rolled over grumpily as if sensing Yuya's gaze on his chest. Yuya had no idea how much sadness and anger Riddle had to have been carrying around to fill both that clear stone and his own body, with blot to the point of overflowing. So what now? Ace asked, arching an eyebrow. You feel bad about beating the snot out of the house warden? As if, Deuce said. Given the state he was in, there was no way I was going to listen to a single word out of his mouth. If that guy wants to be my leader, he needs to prove his worth to me. Yuya nodded. I don't feel bad about it either. Well, of course you don't, Ace grinned at him. It was the same clever smile as always. Huh? Yuya stared at him blankly. I know you meant it for real. All that stuff about hating fighting. But... Ace shrugged. It's like you're actually just really stubborn. Stubborn? Yuya was at a loss for words. No one had ever called him stubborn before. He wanted to explain himself, but he couldn't find the right words. I mean, most people are not going to stand up in a situation like that and tell a guy who's totally flipping his lid to stop fighting, you know? Ace laughed. Even Cater couldn't do anything, and he was for real trying to put on the brakes. True, you've been pretty opinionated since the Enchanted Mine, Deuce laughed too, and Yuya was stunned. Opinionated? Him? He'd always hated fighting with people, so he avoided all kinds of things. He wouldn't even take up a hobby or make friends. But was it really just that? What if it's not that I wouldn't make friends, but I couldn't? He hated stirring up things because of relationships. He'd spent his life avoiding conflict. But that way of living also hadn't allowed him to make friends. He felt like he understood that now after seeing what happened with Riddle. Maybe I hated bending my own principles more than I wanted to have friends. But then, didn't that make him a much more self-centered person than he thought? Yuya groaned and Ace patted his shoulder. Well, it's way better than some cringy sense of justice or whatever, Ace said. And a guy who says he did it for his own sake's a lot more believable than someone saying it was for my sake. But I really wanted to, Yuya began. Yeah, got it, all good. Ace waved a dismissive hand so that they were done talking about it. Yuya turned to Deuce. He was looking at Ace out of the corner of his eye and smiling. He shrugged as if to tell Yuya not to worry about it. He's just embarrassed, Deuce said. Ace basically always gotta be a little contrarian. Oh, shut your trap, Ace said. Objectively, it hadn't been that long since Yuya had met Ace and Deuce, and he wasn't sure if it was okay to call them friends yet. Maybe they wouldn't like it if he did. But this was the first time he'd wanted to be there for anyone. That at least seemed to have come through loud and clear. Ace cleared his throat. Anyway, you got plans after this? After this? Yuya asked. He looked at the ramshackle dorm clock. It wasn't even 8 yet. I'm not sure at what time, but I was thinking of going and studying in the library. In order to keep up with his lessons, he had been busy every day with prepping and reviewing. Professor Carell had handed him a reference book the day before yesterday and told him to read it over the weekend. But he was pretty sure he wasn't going to be able to read it without a dictionary, even though it had been written for middle schoolers. He also hadn't finished the books that Mr. Train had lent him, and he wasn't finished with Mrs. Dervargas's daily trainings either. Even though he was overwhelmed with homework every day, he felt like he actually was accomplishing things. So then you've got no plans, okay? Ace said and stood up. Why are you asking? Yuya followed him with his eyes. Birthday party. We're having one. Grimm's ears twitched. Party food? Yep, and a present from Cater. Present? Grimm sprang up, and Ace grinned. Wow, mercenary. But today, it's so sudden, Yuya said. Why out of the blue? We had actually been talking about having one while Housewarden Rosehearts was back up to full speed, but we decided to keep it a secret from you until everything was ready. Ready for the party? He asked, and Deuce smiled as he stuck his hand into his jacket. Ace also smiled like he was up to something. Here, Deuce said, put these on and let's head over to the unbirthday party. When they saw what was in his hands, both Yuya and Grimm's eyes grew round as saucers. When he arrived at Heartslabyul, he noticed the hedges were all different heights. Apparently, they had switched out the bushes that hadn't taken root and were in the middle of getting them sorted out. The rose bushes still had no buds on them, and there was none of the entrance fragrance of before. Only the green leaves were vibrant and brimming with life. If the students of Heartslabyul combined their powers, they would surely be able to make this dorm bloom again soon. Fortunately, the garden was nevertheless still beautiful. Getting the garden back into some kind of shape was a whole thing, but when it isn't that battered, you kind of have to just throw your hands up. Ace laughed. Morning, Cater came trotting over to them. Yui, good to see you. Oh, Cater, thank you so much for the present, Yuya said, pointing at his own chest. What Ace and Deuce had given him was a ribbon the size of his palm, split equally between red and black. In the center, a brooch glittered in the shape of a heart with a crown. It was quite lovely and very obviously designed for Heartslabyul dorm. Yuya pinned it to his jacket like a corsage, and instantly his all-black uniform felt fancy. Looks great on you. So, Cater wagged his eyebrows at him. Pretty cute, huh? My finest work. Yeah, I'm really happy with it, Yuya nodded. Grimm was pretty delighted too. In place of his original striped ribbon, Grimm had slipped this ribbon through his mage stone, tied it in a bow at the back of his neck, and affixed the heart brooch there. Cater was quickly snapping pictures of them smiling in their matching ribbons. Nyahaha, now I got more outfits. I'm the coolest, Grimm crowed. You look great too, Grimmy, Cater said. Of course, I'm a great mage, so I can set any look on fire. Grimm waved his head around, shoving off his ribbon. He'd been preening like this the whole way here from Ramshackle Dorm. delighted at his new, enhanced wardrobe. When Yuya thanked Cater again on Grimm's behalf, Cater's smile grew wider. With the crown on there, it feels kind of special, yeah? I wanted to make sure you guys could have some kind of formal dress too, since we're gonna ask you to be the unbirthday party and everything, so I talked it over with Riddle. What? Yuya gasped. Riddle, what did he say? Cater snapped his fingers at Yuya. He said that would be good right away. Plus, he told me how amazing my taste is. Yuya had never dreamed it was a Riddle-approved present. Perhaps Ace and Deuce hadn't known either, because surprise colored their expressions. At that moment, someone raced out from the end of the garden and shouted over the chattering party. All hail our leader, the Red Sovereign himself. A white rabbit person standing next to a large arch blew a trumpet, and everyone naturally stood to attention. House Warden Riddle, came the chorus of students. We salute you, House Warden Riddle. Riddle and Trey appeared to cheers and applause. Riddle looked a little thinner than he had before, but his feet were steady under him, and it looked like he had really recovered. But whereas before he had been so puffed up and full of himself, today he seemed a little anxious. He glanced over at the tables, not particularly concerned about the eyes of the students focused on him. Is he maybe worried about whether or not we'll follow the Queen of Hearts' rules, putting the party together? Deuce murmured. Ace scowled dramatically. Is he still going on about that stuff? Simmer down, boys. He's not going to do a complete 180 on who he is, said Cater, patting their shoulders. But he didn't freak out when he discovered the unpainted roses this morning. Not only that, he even helped me to finish painting them. Sure, the way he gets a teensy bit too strict is a problem, but the way he so diligently crosses his T's and dots his I's is one of Riddle's charms. I know that, and so does everyone else. He can take his time with the whole changing thing. Was Trey saying the same thing? After he whispered something in Riddle's ears, Riddle smiled in relief. Okay, Cater grabbed a glass and held it up in the air. He probably thought that nothing would get started unless someone took control. How about we get this party started? Riddle swallowed hard. Happy unbirthday, he said. He sounded slightly nervous, but his voice carried as well as ever. The sound of glasses clinking rang throughout the garden. Happy unbirthday, the students called back. Happy unbirthday. Voices of celebration echoed under the blue sky. No one was forcing the students to cheer and celebrate. Their actions were from the heart now. The cheer in their voices emphasized the smile on their faces. Ace, Deuce, and Yuya pried Grim away from the table where he was inhaling food, and together the group approached Riddle. You, Grim, Riddle said with a smile. You came. Yes, Yuya paused. Should he thank him, offer congratulations, or maybe he should say, get well soon? Not knowing how to continue, Yuya looked to Grim for help, but he was busy eating cake at Yuya's feet. Yuya had never dreamed Grim would ignore Riddle and keep eating. Excuse me, he tried to stop the monster, and Riddle sighed. Don't shovel it in your face like that, Riddle said, and then went around behind Grim and crouched down. There we go. Your whole look would be ruined if your ribbon got twisted up. Thank you, Yuya said. Beside him, Deuce groaned. The house warden fixing Grim's ribbon? He couldn't contain his shock. Yuya was also surprised Riddle would go out of his way to kneel down for Grim's sake. The fact that Grim himself paid this absolutely no mind made Riddle's methodicalness that much funnier. What happened to the tart, House Warden? Ace asked, and Riddle looked visibly nervous. I made it for you, as I promised I would. There, one strawberry tart crafted by yours truly, he said, pointing to a small tart on the table. Among the many cakes with fruits and cream in the shape of flowers, this one had a simple design, with nothing but strawberries on top. Bits were missing from the edge of the crust, perhaps because it had been a little overcooked. But Trey stared at it happily and nodded to himself. Nice, he said encouragingly. The shape's a little off, but I can tell you put a lot of hard work into that glaze. A fine job indeed, especially considering it was your first. Oh, please, how about we actually try it before you start fawning all over him, Trey? Ace said, and then pursed his lips into a pout as he picked up a plate. Riddle took one of the perfectly equivalent 8 slices and set it onto the plate before handing out the rest of the slices. Okay, Ace twirled a fork in one hand. How about we taste test the house warden's apology tart? They all took a bite at the same time, with Riddle's anxiously twitching face. Ace screwed up his face and half shouted, half spat. Salty? Riddle's eyes flew open. What? Trey, Cater, Deuce, and Grim all had the same reaction as Ace. Indeed, the tart was so salty that Yuya unconsciously coughed. The saltiness of the cream was so strong that it wiped out the sweet bitterness of the strawberries and the sweetness of the tart cruster. Whoa, what even gives? This isn't kinda salty. It's a full-on salt lick. Ace took a drink of water and pressed in on Riddle. Hey, is this some kind of revenge? Of course not. I followed the recipe exactly. Maybe you got the sugar and salt mixed up, Deuce suggested, and Riddle sniffed in indignation. I would never make such an error. I confirmed the recipe requirements 3 times with the point and call system. I also double-checked the ingredients while working. It should have come out perfectly, with absolutely no mistakes. Uh-huh. Is that so, buddy boy? Did it really come out that perfectly? Is that how this went? Subtitles, could you please turn back on? Subtitles, please, we are so close. We are so close. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. My. But he did put a lot of effort into his tart. I kind of forgot that he did so much to make sure that the tart was a success. I never would have guessed that he double-checked it all 3 times. I don't know. Blame Trey. Maybe, well, probably. All right, let's see. I might have to like hard refresh it again. That might work. Maybe. It'd be nice if you worked. It'd be nice if the subtitles could come back. Please. Please, there's like 5 pages left, please. Do we care about the subtitles for the last 5 pages? Oh, man. Can you please? There we go. All right. We're good. We're good. It's fine. It's... Okay, too many steps, Deuce laughed, and Cater joined him. How very Riddle of you. But Trey cocked his head to one side, his face serious. So then what happened? Nothing in the recipe I gave you would make this tart salty. Oh, could it be? Riddle said, placing a hand on his jaw. Maybe I put in too much oyster sauce. Huh? Trey's eyes widened and the group jolted with surprise. Curious, Riddle said. Trey, you told me ages ago that although it wasn't written in the recipe, the secret to a delicious tart was to add oyster sauce. That was very unexpected. I remember it well, so I did just as you said and added the oyster sauce. He seemed proud of himself as he related this to them, and perhaps noticing Trey's gaping jaw and Ace's mocking gaze, the look on his face slowly changed. Why are you all looking at me like that? It can't be. Why would anyone use oyster sauce? Trey was teasing you, you big dodo. Ace jabbed at him with his fork, conveniently overlooking the fact that he'd also been taken in by that same joke. I mean, think about it for 2 seconds, dude. Riddle turned reproachful eyes on Trey, but then stared in surprise. Trey was biting his lip, a strange look on his face, half hunched over. I can't believe someone actually fell for the old oyster sauce prank. He desperately bit back his laughter, but his efforts were in vain. His shoulders kept shaking until finally his glee burst free of his lips. And that it would be you of all people, Riddle. Ha! Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but ha! I'm sorry, it's just so funny. Yuya noticed concern cross Cater's face as Trey doubled over. Ha! Riddle expelled a soft breath. Yes, quite humorous indeed. I truly am a fool. Haha. When Riddle laughed, the floodgates burst open, and soon they were all exploding in laughter. With the tension gone from Riddle's smiling face, he looked so innocent and so much younger than Yuya. I've never had such an awful tart before, Ace said. So true, Yuya agreed. Hey, Grim said, tugging on his trousers. If you're not gonna... Oh, wait. I got so confused. I was like, Grim doesn't wear trousers. Where do the trousers come from? They're talking about Yuya. Yuya's trousers. Okay. Sorry about that. If you're not going to eat that, let me have it. Huh? You still have room for more? Yuya remembered the fact that the maker of the tart was right there and swallowed the words. But there are other cakes, just as they were on the tip of his tongue. Given that Grim ate rocks and grass, Yuya should not have been surprised that he was not particularly bothered by trivial differences between sweet and salty. You know, in its own weird way, I think it's actually kind of good, Grim declared. Right? Cater said. I may get where you're coming from, Grimmy. It really isn't half as bad as you think. Seriously? You're agreeing with Grim? Ace frowned. Oh, I get it. You're doing it again. Cater, tiptoeing around the house warden. Is it because the tart's not sweet? Trey interrupted. Ace and Deuce looked back at him. Huh? With a meaningful smile, Trey said to a baffled Cater, I mean, you hate sweet things, so. Oh, you noticed, Cater mumbled, eyes darting around nervously. But how'd you figure it out? I've never told anyone that. Because you casually bring up my paint the roses spell every time we eat sweets, Trey explained. You hide it well, but that was a giveaway. I figured you were just being careful not to rain on everyone's parade. But you don't have to do that anymore, okay? Oh, I tried so hard. Ah, darn it. You mean I'm totally busted? Cringe. Cater covered his face and glared at Trey through his fingers. So like Trey, I think this habit of yours of thinking things and not saying them is kinda bad, maybe? He didn't look like he was seriously angry. As he himself had said, he was mostly just embarrassed. Trey simply smiled. I'll make you a quiche for the next unbirthday party. Please and thank you. Cater fanned his red cheeks with a hand. Make sure it's a Magicam worthy as any cake. Don't worry, he's sure to whip up something tasty, an unfamiliar voice said suddenly. Yuya looked to the side to find a head with cat ears bobbing in the air. Your baked goods are always so delightful, Trey, Chenya said, cheeks bulging. Chenya? Riddle did a double take before exclaiming, What are you doing here? A head, Cater and the other dorm students nearby exclaimed in shock. But Chenya paid them no mind as he slowly materialized his body. Yuya had no idea how he managed to eat when he was just ahead, but he could see several cakes nearby with pieces missing. I came to celebrate my unbirthday with all of you. A very merry unbirthday to you, Riddle, Chenya said. The unbirthday party is a Heartslabyul tradition, Riddle said, a stern look on his face. It does not pertain to outsiders, especially not you as a Royal Sword Academy student. Royal Sword Academy? Ace and Deuce cried out as one. Royal Sword Academy, what is that? Yuya asked. But for some reason, the two of them set down their plates and forks with hard looks on their face. Why didn't you say so before? Ace demanded at Chenya. He crossed his arms. And just when I was feeling a teensy bit grateful that there was at least one nice guy at our school, I feel lied to. Chenya raised a dubious eyebrow. You were the one who said you didn't care about introductions. That's a side. Okay, well, maybe that's true. But I never imagined there'd be someone from Royal Sword Academy at our school. Yuya wondered what all this was about, and Trey filled him in with a smile, saying, Royal Sword Academy is Nightraven College's rival school. Its rival? Yuya asked. It's an arcane academy too? Trey nodded. Said to be just as prestigious as ours. We compete over just about everything at tournaments, concerts, challenges, contests, you name it. But, Yuya waited for him to continue. Riddle picked up where he left off with a sour look on his face, admitting, Nightraven College has lost to them for 100 years straight. So then you're not much rivals, as Yuya swallowed his words, and Riddle clenched his fists in frustration. It made sense that this whole school would view this arch-enemy with hostility, given the 100-year losing streak. The instant they heard that Chenya was a student of Royal Sword Academy, the gazes of students around Ace and Deuce changed. Royal Sword Academy? He's one of those pompous jerk faces? Muttered one student. He's got some nerve sneaking in here. We gotta run him out of here, another shouted. Chenya grinned and said, Well, now that I've tasted some tart, perhaps I should see myself out. Once again, happy unbirthday, everyone! Humming once again, he gradually faded out of sight until only his smile lingered in the air. Where did he go? The students began to yell and race around, looking for the invisible Catboy. The head mage had told Yuya he still hadn't found a way to get them back to their original world. He'd finally gotten used to the ghost being the first thing he saw when he woke up, and the days he'd spent with Grim, Ace, Deuce, and everyone else were not as bad as he'd feared they might be at first. But it didn't really seem like he could make it in a place with this much fighting. You're gonna catch it when we find you, Ace huffed, scanning the area for Chenya, and Yuya felt a new resolve to try to get back to his own world. And then, on the following page, we have Trey with the strawberry tart riddle drinking tea, Hater with the tea kettle that has 3 teapots that are all jointed, Deuce with a flamingo, Ace with a flamingo, and Grim with 2 little tarts. Or 2 little cakes, rather, excuse me. And some card soldiers holding up a banner that says, "The End." And that's it. Or it would be, if we didn't have a secret chapter 18. Would you all like to know what secret chapter 18 has to say? Shall we? Grim staggered out of the Heartslabyul mirror, stomach blissfully stuffed. He'd gotten his fill of the leftover cake thanks to his assignment to the cleanup crew. His henchhuman was no doubt patiently awaiting his return at Ramshackle Dorm. He had to hurry back. Who knew what kind of trouble that magicless human would get himself into if left alone for too long? But my tum-tum's mighty full, he mused. His stomach was too heavy walking on 2 legs. When he dropped down to all 4s and shook himself out, his tail knocked against something. When he looked back, a boy with large triangular ears was standing at the entrance to the Hall of Mirrors. Apparently, Grim had bumped into him. "Oh, looky, a big fat kitty," the boy said as he sniffed at him and licked his lips. He smells delicious." "What are you?" Grim was overawed by the boy inching towards him. He'd thought he was the king when it came to gluttony, but this guy did not look like he was joking when he said Grim looked delicious. The skinny boy's eyes shone eagerly as he came closer and closer. "I'm not tasty at all. If you're gonna eat someone, right, start off with Ace or Deuce." He started running as fast as he could towards Ramshackle Dorm. He looked back halfway, but there was no sign of the boy chasing him. Returning to Savannah Claw Dorm, Ruggy headed for the house warden's room to report on his investigation. He knocked but got no reply. As usual, when he went inside anyway, Leona was lounging on a large sofa reading a book. Clothes and a bag were scattered on the floor where he tossed them down. "Aw," Ruggy sighed as he picked up the items and set them in a corner. "I ran into that monster. You know the one? Out of control at the orientation. Anyway, he was defo on his way home from a Heartslabyul party. He stank of sugar. How come Savannah Claw doesn't have any traditions that involve eating lots of free food?" "Bah, it's a beautiful sunny day, and they're stuffing their faces with cookies and cake? Grossing me out over here," Leona replied coldly, and then he looked up at Ruggy for the first time. "Anyway." Ruggy didn't let him finish his sentence. "Just leave it to me, boss. All the preparations are proceeding smoothly." He laughed, shoulders shaking, and Leona smiled too, as if compelled to by that unique laugh. "Then those fools won't be happily guzzling tea for much longer. That goes double for that snob Malleus." Leona's smile turned icy in a way that made even Ruggy shudder and want to take a step back. They had got no idea what's coming. And that for realsies is the end of Twisted Wonderland Rose Red Tyrant the novel. Did you all have a good time on this journey of many streams? I quite like this novel. I'm very curious to see how they're going to do Savannah Claw because I really want to know more about Leona's past from his perspective. But I feel like there were so many more subtle details in this novel than there were in game, and I think it really fleshes out the characters a bit more. It really does make them... It made Ace a lot more admirable than I normally give him credit for. I feel like I give Ace a real bad rap. Savannah Claw's out, but it's not translated, I don't think. It gets, wait, maybe it is. Wait, it's March, right? Doesn't the translated version release in March? And we'll have to do a looky-loo. We'll have to do a looky-loo and see if it's around anywhere. You're right, it might be. Not the official English translation. I don't know. The last time I looked it up, at Barnes & Noble, they had, like, the release date, I think, for sometime in March, if I'm not mistaken. But, I'd have to check it out again. I don't actually know, because, like, the pre-order was for some time. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up and see if it is out. Oh gosh, what is it called? I don't actually know what the novel's called. Alright, well, not the manga, the light novel. Alright, well anyway, I can do this on my own time. but I'm glad y'all had fun. I'm glad y'all enjoyed hanging out, enjoyed this story. Come back to it whenever y'all want to. The VOD will be up. And yeah, maybe I'll make like a master thing where I stitch all 3 videos together, and that way y'all can listen to the whole book if you really wanted to. But yeah, this was delightful. I'm so glad that we all could be here for this experience. And just hanging out and all that. Oh, okay. It's okay. Well, that's weird. Okay, so on Barnes & Noble's website, it says that the Book of Savannah Claw is available for pre-order and will be released on April 8th of 2025. Oh, we're in March, not April. So yeah, so it's coming out soon, but it's not here yet. It's just called Book of Savannah Claw. Oh no, it's the manga. It's not the light novel. Oh, now I'm really confused. So maybe, I think maybe the novel will come out, the light novel will be translated after the manga fully releases. But the first manga, according to Barnes & Noble, will be out on April 8th. So, keep that in mind for you. If you wish, if you wish. But, yeah. Exciting times, exciting times. I just really want to know how they're going to do Leona's character flashback scene thing. Quite interested in that. But we'll have to see how it goes. Maybe we'll read that one on stream too, who's to say. But for now, if you are going to be going to sleep, have a good sleep. If you are having a day, have a good day. I'm gonna be wrapping up because it's getting a little late here, but this was delightful. I always appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Nice blessings. Bye-bye.